If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 21, Profound Alchemy. Almost as soon as Cyrus took the book in his hands, he realized something was wrong. Its material is neither paper nor sheepskin. The text and illustrations in the book are not drawn but seem to be stamped with metal. The book is very thin, only 21 pages, but the page numbers in the corners are not in accordance with the rules and are not marked in order. Instead, A7 is marked every 7 pages, a total of 3. According to the general understanding in the wizarding world, 7 is indeed a magical number. In fact, there is a course at Hogwarts that specifically mentions this magical number, and Voldemort also loves 7 very much. However, this is an alchemy, and in alchemy, 3 is considered a magic number. As for the content in this book, he couldn't decipher it at all. The knowledge possessed by Voldemort in the 5th grade seemed a bit superficial when compared with more profound knowledge. Not to mention, even Nicolas Flamel, who had the dream revelation, spent 28 years to decipher the mystery of this book. Cyrus closed the Jewish Book of Abraham and looked next to it, and sure enough he found another book. Nicolas Flamel's manuscript, the Book of Hieroglyphs. In comparison, this book was very thick. Cyrus flipped through a few pages at random, and an opened letter slipped out of the book. __. To Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore. Dear Albus. After experiencing a very long time, more than 6 centuries, dragging our already dilapidated bodies and facing death, neither perennial nor I have any fear. Both of us want to believe that when the world knows after our death, we can't help but feel regret for the end of our lives and greed for our huge wealth, except for you, Albus. We both believed that death was just another adventure, one in which Parnell and I had been too late. Before I leave, I will give you the 2 most important books in my lifetime to commemorate you as a friend who is more than 500 years younger than me, but is even wiser than me. In addition, I left my wealth to Beau's batons. I hope you don't mind. Of course, I know very well that Albus Dumbledore has never been interested in this at all. I dare not say that I have understood all the mysteries of the Jewish Book of Abraham. This book foreseen in dreams, although only has a few pages, but contains real wisdom and truth. I hope you will keep it safe. If you can decipher the whole mystery behind it, then it would be even better. However, we all know understanding that book is too difficult. During the time when we first met and later worked closely together to explore the secrets of magic and alchemy, you have read this book countless times. But there is no progress at all. I very much want to believe that since it found me through prophecy, then maybe fate can take it to where it should go. Now, because of Voldemort, I am determined to transfer the Philosopher's Stone to you. Maybe this is also a revelation. Having said that, Parnell and I actually left a lot of elixirs behind, so please don't worry about it. Also, I believe we will meet again soon. _______. Cyrus closed the letter, finally understanding what was going on. A person like Riddle who fears death will definitely take it as his own if he knows the existence of this book. But Riddle has no memory of it. Because it was placed here by Dumbledore last year. The envelope has been opened, indicating that Dumbledore has read Nicolas Flamel's letter and knows that these 2 books were actually given to him by Nico, but he has no intention of taking them as his own. Selflessly, he placed them in the forbidden book area, waiting for the revelation of fate that Nicholas mentioned. Could this revelation be me? Cyrus couldn't help but think narcissistically. But no matter what, he was unwilling to let go of these 2 books. If he could really refine the Philosopher's Stone, it would be very helpful for his resurrection. Even if he could only refine some defective products, as long as he could replenish his vitality, the harm to Ginny would be much less. Thinking of this, Cyrus quickly flipped through these 2 books and also selected some other alchemical works in order to draw parallels. Voldemort's alchemy level was actually very high. Not only did he obtain the Advanced Wizard Certificate with excellent results, he also interned in Borgin's shop for a period of time after graduation. However, that was the Tom Riddle after graduation, not the 5th grade Tom Riddle now. The book Islamic Alchemy and the Tree of Life in Kabbalah records a wizard named Hohenheim, another legendary wizard who possesses the Philosopher's Stone. However, there is doubt as to whether it is true or not. Cyrus said aloud. He took a deep breath and quickly started reading. He was glad that his soul was in a state of memory now, otherwise, it would have been impossible to memorize all the books in a short time. Because of his special state at this time, the diary will be equivalent to another precious pensieve. All the books he has read will be recorded in the form of pictures inside that grey space. He could just record the contents of these books first and then analyze them slowly when he gets back. Of course, the time required to study will not actually be reduced, it is just relatively safe. The ancient Egyptian alchemical classic Jade record also has some reference value, Some kind of riddle is written here to create the miracle of the only thing. You need to understand that the things in the upper world are the same as the lower world, and the things in the lower world are no different from the upper world. What is the only thing? In addition to this copy of the Jade record, there was another book of Thoth beside it, which had a very deep connection with the Jade record, so Cyrus also opened it together with the Jade record. At this time, he didn't ask for a detailed explanation, it could even be said that he was looking at the pages in a hurry. He only looked at a general idea of whether he needed it, and then immediately decided to put it down or record it. Gradually, Cyrus became obsessed with it, and it was not until the harsh rooster crow came from outside the castle that he woke up, and he suddenly realized that it was almost dawn. I have to go back quickly. I originally said I would look for some powerful black magic books to see if I could improve my strength, but I ended up reading alchemy all night. Cyrus shook his head, but he didn't regret looking at these books and not trying to find the dark magic ones. He didn't feel any pity at all. He just wanted to return this body to Ginny and continue to slowly digest the knowledge in the memory space. Walking quickly in the corridors of Hogwarts, outside the castle, the sky is still dark, but the eastern sky has begun to slowly turn white. By the way, I have to kill a rooster as soon as possible. Before this, Cyrus had already killed a rooster, but he did not dare to kill them all at once, otherwise, it would have been too suspicious. Chapter 22, Quidditch Match. During these nights, Cyrus used Ginny's body to sneak into the forbidden book area from time to time. In addition to alchemy, he also read many other books, such as the Book of the Red Dragon, the Book of Solomon, the Book of Roger Eyre, the Encyclopedia of Dark Curse and so on. Some of these books were ones that Tom Riddle had already read, and some that he himself had not had time to read. After all, Riddle's time at Hogwarts was too short, and there was a limit to what he could see. So he just focused most of his energy on black magic. But it's not just black magic books that have terrifying powers. There are also some magics that are not black magic, but because they are very dangerous, they are also placed in the restricted area. For example, the book Cyrus is still reading, Theory and Experiment of Fantasy Magus Transformation, the birth of the five-legged monster these days. Although magical animals have been enslaved, the magical power in their bodies is very powerful. If I can realize the transformation of the magical animal Gus, my strength will be greatly improved. Cyrus closed the book and put his consciousness back to the depths of memory. Awoey, Ginny yawned sleepily. She felt that her head was 10 times heavier than the quaffle. Good morning, Ginny, are you okay? Colin, who was holding the camera, saw her at a glance and came over to say hello. Your face looks too bad. You look like you haven't slept for several days. Click. As he said that, he raised the camera and immediately took a picture of Ginny. Then, a picture of a cute little girl with thick dark circles under her eyes was printed. It was hard to see. Colin, who knows the air, was very happy. Honestly, I didn't expect wizards to also lack sleep. You look like you will fall to the ground at any time. You also have dark circles and bags under your eyes. This kid was chirping, which made Ginny a little unhappy, and he actually dared to take ugly photos of herself? Shut up, Colin, and give me that picture. What? No way. I'm going to send it home to my brother to see. He yearns for Hogwarts very much. Colin showed his teeth, smiled first, and then said worriedly, do you want to go and take a break? You look so bad in the photo, I'm worried you'll die in my camera. Ginny? You're done, kid. Although she was going crazy with anger, her physical exhaustion made Ginny too lazy to argue with him. She just asked listlessly, what's the class today? There are no classes today. I think you really need to rest. Did you forget that today is the Quidditch match? Gryffindor vs Slytherin. He said immediately, I plan to sneak onto the field after a while. Then take a picture of the moment when Harry will win the game. By the way, how is your relationship with Harry? Your brother and he are good friends, right? Colin's mouth kept talking like a machine gun that couldn't be stopped, but Ginny's ears only heard the first 5 words, there is no class today. Skipping class. I'm going back to rest. You're not going to watch the game? Colin said in surprise. He thought every wizard in the wizarding world liked Quidditch. What's more, today is a match between Gryffindor and Slytherin. Quidditch. Ginny paused. Did she like Quidditch? Of course, she liked it. In fact, she was very envious every time she watched her brothers play family Quidditch at home. But most of the time they didn't include her when only the boys played. But on the other hand, ugh. I am really sleepy now. Oh. By the way, I can ask Mr. Riddle if he can help me record the Quidditch match. Yes, that's it. Okay, it'll be almost like sleeping in the playground, hee. What? Colin heard her muttering in excitement and asked. It's nothing. You go over first. I'll go to the playground to see later. Ginny hurried back to the dormitory and took out her diary. Mr. Riddle, there is a Quidditch match today. I don't want to miss it, but I am too tired. Can you record the match in a diary? Just like when we talked face to face. Oh. A Quidditch game? Ginny, I think you should rest if you are tired. No, it's Slytherin vs Gryffindor. I want to be able to see the game, but I'm afraid that I'll just collapse on the stands and miss it. Please, Mr. Riddle, record it for me. I promise I'll rest afterward. Cyrus was immediately attracted by Ginny's words. If he remembered correctly, it was after this game in the original book that the second person attacked by the basilisk appeared. Colin Creevey. It was the first-year guy who kept pestering Harry. Cyrus knew it was time to take action again. Of course. I guarantee to give you an authentic Quidditch match. Great, then I'll go to sleep first. Ginny had already fallen asleep before she finished writing. Cyrus was actually feeling a little tired as he pressed against Ginny's body. However, he had saved some pepper-up potions when Ginny had a cold before. Drinking this is much more useful than drinking coffee. The price was that he had to watch the Quidditch game with a smoking head. Hello, Ginny, do you have a cold again? Hermione saw Ginny coming and greeted Ginny in a friendly manner on the playground. The relationship between her and Ginny was very good, but Ginny Weasley always gave her a sickly, pitiful kid kind of feeling. She just got over the flu not long ago, but I didn't expect it to happen again today. Hermione thought. I just didn't sleep well. I stayed up late reading, Cyrus replied. Oh, it's good to like reading, but you should pay more attention to rest. Hermione said quickly, while glaring at Ron, who was embarrassed. You should learn from your sister. That's why she, only a first-year student, can cast a spell on a senior student, not to mention break your slug spell. Not like you who can't even cast a simple spell and instead cast on yourself. Are you crazy? It's because my wand is broken. Ron didn't expect that he could be slapped even though he was sitting so far. In hopes of protecting his remaining image, he immediately shouted in grievance. Humph. Hermione didn't say anything further. In fact, she was just persuading her friends to learn, but the effect has not been very good. Several people's attention returned to the court, and Gryffindor was at a disadvantage from the beginning. The Gryffindor team's situation is not looking optimistic. You know, Malfoy donated several Nimbus 2001 to the Slytherin team, but the Gryffindor team will still sweep the series, not even the 7-star sweep. Lee Jordan was doing his biased commentary. Even Harry's Nimbus 2000 is a notch behind Malfoy's broom. Those black, smooth broom handles, like a handsome and attractive sports car, caught Ron's attention. The weather was already very dull, and after a while, it started to rain. Now, the score on the court is 0-60, and Slytherin scored 60 points. Cyrus doesn't know much about the balls, but he can still understand the basic rules. The Quaffle scores 10 points, the Golden Snitch scores 150 points, and the Bludger scores no points. This kind of ball is usually hit by anyone. The purpose of the bludger is to hinder the actions of its players. But now, there is obviously something wrong with one of the bludgers. I think I saw something like this last year. Ron said blankly. Oh, Merlin. Someone has done something to that ball. Hermione stood up immediately. At this moment, the bludger almost gave up attacking others and followed Harry as if it had eyes, so that the twins, who were batters, had to surround Harry and keep knocking it away. Hermione didn't notice anyone casting spells. She subconsciously looked at Snape, but after remembering what happened last semester she lost hope. She couldn't help but look at Lockhart as the last hope. Lockhart, last hope? What's that supposed to mean? Chapter 23, The Medical Master Lockhart. Cyrus looked at the professor's chair. All the professors, including Dumbledore, were watching with fear, but interestingly, no one took action. Now, what is going on? I am not the only one who can see that something is wrong with the bludger, when why the professors are sitting on the stands like idiots? Why aren't they doing something? Shouldn't the professors do something about the ball? Cyrus couldn't help but ask. Ron's face didn't look good, but he still explained, of course, they can't. You know, you will always encounter some unusual things in official Quidditch matches. If professors interfere in everything, the game will be ruined. Ron looked at Harry being targeted and continued, I think unless someone's life is really in danger, no one will intervene. But what about Harry and the others? Why isn't the Gryffindor team asking to check the bludgers? Of course not. What if there is no problem with the bludgers? Then they will be disqualified from the competition. Before the game started, Wood even told Harry, either catch the golden snitch or die on the field. Ron's face turned pale, we have to think of a way. I can't find who is casting the spell. Hermione said anxiously. Cyrus knew who was doing the trick, but he had no intention of doing anything about it. His eyes stayed on another seat in the playground. As the big sponsor of the Slytherin team, Lucius Malfoy naturally came to the match. On the one hand, he wanted to watch his son's game, and on the other hand, he also wanted to take a look if the diary left by the Dark Lord was really capable of opening the secret room. The question is, will Lucius Malfoy act the same as in the original book this time? In the book, when Riddle was controlling Ginny, did he have any secret contact with Lucius? Did he find the right time to drive Dumbledore away? Cyrus immediately realized that the plan he had in mind might not be so easy to implement. At this time, Lucius Malfoy was watching Draco's game wholeheartedly. Although he is usually extremely strict with Draco and does not show any pretense, but he loves his children. He just behaves strictly to make the young boy into a Malfoy. If Draco wants his love, he must be Malfoy first. Malfoy first. Cyrus mumbled this sentence silently, already having a plan in his mind. But regardless of whether Riddle had contacted Lucius in the book or not, at least for now, he plans to do so. With the name Malfoy, Lucius will not dare to have any objections to his orders. Of course, not now. Oh! Suddenly, huge and enthusiastic cheers woke him up. He saw the Gryffindors jumping up from their seats one by one. Hermione and Ron did not hesitate to pull Ginny into the crowded crowd and jump down to the playground. There were so many people swarming like them, especially when Harry won the game in an almost tragic gesture. He became a hero to all of Gryffindor. Cyrus only saw him falling to the ground as if he was about to pass out. Worst of all, his arm was almost twisted into a knot. Is he okay? It's hard to say. That crazy bludger hit his right hand. I think it was probably broken at that time. As a result, he crashed directly into Malfoy and stunned Malfoy. Ron said quickly, later, he caught the golden snitch first, but his arm was injured even more. 3 people gathered around Harry. At this time, a bright and cheerful voice came from outside the crowded crowd. Give way, let me see him. Lockhart pushed through the crowd and squeezed in. He said confidently with his unique smile, broken hand? Haha, just leave it to me. I have almost encountered this situation. Hundreds of times. Hermione quickly made room for him. But Harry didn't trust him that much, no, it could even be said that Harry was fearful. As soon as he heard Lockhart's voice, he was awakened from his coma and weakly refused, oh, no, I don't want you to. The voice was both resistant and fearful. Aha! I don't know what he's talking about, Lockhart said loudly to the anxious Gryffindor students gathered around him. Don't worry, Harry. I'm just going to fix your arm. No. Harry said, just leave it like this, thank you. At this time, war reporter Colin also came in to get involved, and once again used his camera to capture Harry's embarrassing scene. Therefore, it is really not unjust for this kid to be petrified. Lie back, Harry, Lockhart reassured him. It's a simple spell that I've used countless times. Why can't I just go to the campus hospital? Harry gritted his teeth and looked at Cyrus, even if Ginny comes. He remembered that Ginny easily broke Ron's curse. In comparison, she was much more reliable than Lockhart. In fact, of course, Cyrus could easily cure Harry, but if he didn't let Lockhart, the master of medical skills, show his talents, how could he petrify Colin who was going to visit Harry in the hospital? He really should go to the hospital, said the mud-covered Wood, who couldn't suppress the smile on his face after winning the match despite the injury to his seeker. "That was a great catch, Harry. It was brilliant. Wow, I've never seen anyone doing so like you did." Harry looked through the dense crowd of legs around him and saw brothers Fred and George Weasley desperately trying to press the out-of-control bludger into the box. The bludger still struggled ferociously. "Stand back," Lockhart said, rolling up his emerald green sleeves. Don't, Harry said weakly, but Lockhart was already twirling his wand. After a second, he pointed his wand at Harry's arm. A strange, deeply uncomfortable feeling ran like lightning from Harry's shoulders to the tips of his fingers. It was as if his arms were being drained. He didn't dare to see what was going on, so he closed his eyes and turned his face to one side. But as people around him gasped and Colin Creevey was busy snapping photos again, he found that his worst fears had come true. His arm didn't hurt anymore, but it didn't feel like there is an arm. He could only feel one arm. Lockhart said in a panic. "Ah. Yes, sometimes this happens. But the key is that he is no longer in pain. This must be remembered. Okay, Harry, take a stroll to the hospital. Mr. Weasley, Miss Granger, can you go with him? And Ms. Pomfrey can, fix it up for you again." Harry stood up, feeling his body tilt oddly to one side. He took a deep breath and looked down at the right side of his body. The sight before him almost caused him to faint again. What protruded from his sleeve looked like a thick, flesh-colored rubber glove. He tried moving his fingers, but there was no response. Lockhart failed to connect Harry's bones. And instead removed all the bones. "Haha, you must not be feeling any pain. Just tell me if it still hurts," Lockhart said with a smile. Chapter 24, The Second Attack. Madame Pomfrey glared at him. "I'm very happy that you came to the campus hospital, but I'm very unhappy that you didn't come to me directly." She held up the poor gloomy Harry's lifeless hand, which was as soft as a rubber. "I can reattach the bones in a second, but to make them grow back." "Never again?" Cyrus asked. "It can't be hard again? I mean, bones. What else could it be?" Ron didn't quite understand. "Of course, I will let it grow out, but it will be very painful. He will have to spend the night here," Madame Pomfrey said with a straight face, throwing Harry a set of pajamas and giving Cyrus a hard look. "You little girl, what are you thinking in your head?" The curtains around Harry's bed were closed. Ron helped him change into his pajamas and Hermione and Cyrus were waiting outside. Ron struggled to get the rubbery, boneless arm into the sleeve. "How can you protect Lockhart now, Hermione?" Ron said loudly through the curtain while pulling Harry's limp fingers out of the cuffs one by one. "Everyone makes mistakes," said Hermione. "And your arm doesn't hurt now, does it, Harry? It really doesn't hurt anymore." Even Cyrus looked at Hermione with a ridiculous expression. It goes without saying what the first victim Harry's expression was now. "Hermione, you should be more sensible and think about it. Can't you see, if Madame Pomfrey couldn't help it, Harry's right hand would be useless? That Lockhart almost made him permanently disabled. He has no ability at all. He should not have done anything uncertain from the beginning." Hermione was a little saddened by this, and then Madame Pomfrey walked into the curtain with a large bottle in her hand, labeled Bone Wraith. The two of them followed. "It will be a tough night for you," she said, pouring out a steaming mug and handing it to Harry. "Growing bones is hard." Seeing Harry's sad look, Ron decided to say something else to change the subject. "At least we won. Thanks to you for catching the golden snitch." That look on Malfoy's face. He looked like he wanted to kill someone. "I really want to know what he did to that bludger," Hermione said angrily. They had already blamed Malfoy for the bludger problem. "We can also write this question on the list and ask him together after we drink the Polyjuice Potion. I hope the Polyjuice Potion tastes better than this." Harry's words became quieter and quieter. Before Min and Ron realized something was wrong, they saw Harry's eyes seeming to be fixed on Cyrus. "You are talking about the potion to change appearance." Cyrus expressed his doubts at the right time. Now, they also realize something is wrong. "Harry! You spilled the beans." Hermione covered his mouth with a pillow like crazy. Ron quickly stopped in front of Cyrus and said hurriedly, "You heard wrong, Ginny, there is no such compound potion. How can we refine the compound potion? That is a potion that even senior students cannot refine, let alone say that the secret recipe is still hidden in the forbidden area, and we need to go to Snape to steal the potion." This is impossible. And we can't find a place where we can concentrate on refining the potion without being disturbed. Ron, I want to remind you, that you have told almost everything. Harry used his left hand to push open the pillow with difficulty. Ron immediately turned pale and begged quickly, "Don't tell Mom, please." A lean to give a kiss on Ginny's forehead. Cyrus dodged and he fell. Haha. Hermione smiled awkwardly. Of course, I won't snitch. Cyrus shook his head and said, it would not do him any good, but... So, you are planning to use the Polyjuice Potion to become one of the Slytherin, and then find out if Malfoy is the one who opened the Chamber of Secrets. The gold trio nodded immediately. Then, Hermione reacted and said in surprise, wait, you know the Polyjuice Potion? And you also know its uses. You know, Ron had never heard of the compound potion at all. I've seen it in books, Cyrus said nonchalantly. Riddle had read the book Powerful Potion more than once that year. He dropped the topic and continued, if you don't mind, you can invite me to join you then. You are too young. Ron was just about to refuse when there was a bustling sound outside the door, and people from the Gryffindor team swarmed in. He had no choice but to shut his mouth and wink at Cyrus as hard as he could. The team members brought a lot of food and drinks as if they were going to have a party directly in the school hospital. This annoyed Madame Pomfrey, who immediately rushed out from the other side and kicked everyone out. This kid needs to rest, he has 33 bones to grow. Get out! Get out! At the entrance of the school hospital, Cyrus met Colin again, who was about to come to visit. This kid originally wanted to go in, but was led out by a group of people from the team. His small stature stretched out in the crowd. Neck looking around. Ron couldn't avoid him and immediately hid further away. He doesn't want to give an interview to this reporter wannabe. Don't be sad, Colin, Madame Pomfrey doesn't allow us to visit Harry directly. Cyrus reminded kindly, but you can visit secretly. After saying that, Cyrus left directly. Ginny's body was a little too tired. In order not to affect Ginny's health, Cyrus planned to take a rest. There were still several hours between now and Hogwarts curfew. At night, Cyrus wakes up in a dark chamber. A huge basilisk surrounded him. Although its eyes have terrifying magic power, they cannot harm him, the person who controls the basilisk. The second hunt is about to begin. He sat on the basilisk's head and ordered the basilisk to close its eyes. This magical animal is actually very different from a snake. Its movements rely more on vision and hearing rather than heat sensing. Follow my command, and I will guide you forward. Cyrus made a terrifying sound, like something evil was whispering. Hogwarts was quiet and strange at night. Cyrus shrewdly avoided Filch, who was still patrolling, and swarmed toward the school doctor's office on a huge snake. At the same time, Colin also took a bunch of grapes secretly left at the dinner and planned to secretly visit Harry Potter just as Ginny told him. Since it was his first night trip, Colin had also brought his own camera. Looking forward to taking pictures of something different. From this aspect, it can be said that he got what he wanted. He hummed and walked briskly around the corner, but unexpectedly bumped into a huge object, causing Colin to fall to the ground and even the grapes in his hand fell. What the hell? His voice soon became hoarse as he looked at the thing he had bumped into. At this time, a huge snake, its head alone was bigger than his head, was facing him with its eyes closed. And on top of the big snake was the Ginny Weasley he was familiar with. Ginny, are you the heir of Slytherin? He said absurdly. Yes, it's a pity that no third person will know about this, Cyrus said jokingly. Colin seemed to realize something and immediately picked up the camera and pointed it at the basilisk and Ginny, trying to take a picture of the culprit. He will die, but at least. Crack. Good night, little Gryffindor. Chapter 25, The question is not who, the question is how? Harry was awakened by voices in his head and the pain in his arms. It felt as if someone had inserted thousands of sharp blades into the muscles of his arms. When the bone fragments grew, they would inevitably cut his flesh and blood. Now, the pain that Lockhart had taken away was back in 2x. But more than the pain, he cared more about the voice that kept echoing in his head, so long ago, he almost forgot about it, and there was a monster that wiped his forehead with a sponge ball. Ah! Go away! He waved in panic, but soon recognized who the monster was, Dobby. The house elf that had warned him in the Ministry of Magic. Oh! Sir Potter woke up. Dobby reminded Sir Potter several times. Ah, sir, why didn't you listen to Dobby's warning? When Sir Potter didn't catch the train, why didn't he go home? Dobby said sadly. Now, Harry finally knew who wanted to harm him. Did you do it? It was you who sealed the partition wall and prevented us from passing by. You almost caused me and Ron to be expelled. He said angrily, you'd better get away before my bones are fully grown, or I will strangle you to death. Ah! Dobby is used to death threats, Sir Potter. Dobby hears them 5 times a day at home. Dobby said nonchalantly, but he looked a little pitiful. Harry's annoyance suddenly subsided a lot. Why are you wearing that thing, Dobby? He looked at the clothes Dobby was wearing, or a pillowcase that had not been washed for decades and was dirtier than a rag. Are you talking about this, sir? Dobby said, tugging at the pillowcase. This symbolizes the house elf's slave status, sir. Dobby can only be freed when his master gives him clothes to wear. The Malfoy family. They were careful not to give Dobby even a pair of socks, sir, because then Dobby would be free and leave their house forever. Upon hearing this, Harry immediately felt sympathy, but his sympathy immediately dissipated the next moment after hearing Dobby's next words. Harry Potter must go home. Dobby thought his bludger would surely make. Your bludger? What do you mean, your bludger? Did you let that bludger kill me? I didn't kill you, sir, I definitely didn't kill you. Dobby said in horror. Dobby wanted to save Harry Potter's life. It's better to be sent home after being seriously injured than to stay here, sir. He said hurriedly. Dobby just wants Sir Harry Potter to be slightly injured and to be sent home. Oh, that's it? Harry asked angrily and sarcastically. I guess you're not going to tell me why you want me to be sent home in pieces, are you? Oh, that Harry Potter himself doesn't know what he means to us humble, enslaved little people in the wizarding world. Dobby has not forgotten the times when he who must not be named was at his most powerful, sir. People treated us house elves like vermin, sir. And of course, they still treat Dobby that way, sir, he admitted, wiping his face on the pillowcase again. But overall, since you defeated he who must not be named, life has improved a lot for those of us. Harry Potter survived, and the Dark Lord's spell was broken. This is a new beginning, sir. For those of us, who thought the dark days would never end, Harry Potter shines like a beacon of hope, sir. And now, at Hogwarts, something terrible is about to happen, or it may have already happened. Dobby cannot let Harry Potter stay here, because history is about to repeat itself, and the Chamber of Secrets will be opened again. So, there really is a Chamber of Secrets? Harry asked quietly. And, you say it has been opened before? Tell me about it, Dobby. Ah, sir, stop asking, stop questioning poor Dobby. The elf stammered, his eyes as big as bells in the darkness. There is someone plotting here. When things happen, Harry Potter must not stay here. Go home, Harry Potter. Go home. Harry Potter must not get involved in this, sir, it's too dangerous. Who is that, Dobby? Who opened the Chamber of Secrets? And who had opened it last time? Harry asked. Dobby can't say, sir, Dobby can't answer, Dobby must not say the name. Screamed the elf. Go home, Harry Potter, go home. I'm not going anywhere. Harry said irritably. One of my best friends is Muggleborn. If the Chamber of Secrets is really opened, she will bear the brunt. Ah! Harry Potter is willing to risk his life for his friends. Dobby groaned sadly and happily at the same time. How noble! How brave! But Sir Potter must protect himself first, he must, Harry Potter must not stay. Dobby suddenly froze, his bat-like ears trembling. Harry heard it too. There were footsteps in the corridor outside. Dobby must go. The elf gasped, frightened. There was a loud crack, and Harry's fist suddenly loosened, leaving only air inside. He fell back on the bed, looking at the dark door of the ward, and the footsteps were getting closer and closer. Immediately afterward, Dumbledore stepped into the ward. He wore a long woolen dressing gown and a nightcap. He held one end of something sculptural in his hands, and a second later, Professor McGonagall appeared, holding the humanoid sculpture's feet up. Together they put it on the bed. Call Madame Pomfrey, Dumbledore whispered, and Professor McGonagall hurried past Harry's bedside and walked out. Harry lay still, pretending to be asleep. He heard someone talking urgently, and then Professor McGonagall came in quickly, followed by Madame Pomfrey, who was wearing a jacket over her pajamas. "Oh, Merlin!" Harry heard a gasp. "What's going on?" Madame Pomfrey asked Dumbledore in a low voice, leaning down to examine the statue. "Another attack," said Dumbledore. "McGonagall and I found him on the stairs." "He also has a bunch of grapes with him," said Professor McGonagall. "We guess he wanted to sneak here to see Potter." "Who is it? It's not Ron or Hermione, right?" Harry's stomach twitched violently. Slowly and carefully, he lifted himself a few inches so that he could see the statue on the bed. A ray of moonlight shone on the stunned face. "It's Colin Creevey." His eyes were wide open and his hands were stretched out in front of his chest, holding up his camera. "Petrified?" Madame Pomfrey asked quietly. "Yes," said Professor McGonagall, "I shudder just thinking about it. If Dumbledore hadn't happened to come downstairs with hot chocolate, who knows what would have happened." The three people looked at Colin intently. Then Dumbledore leaned forward and took the camera from Colin's stiff fingers. "Could he have taken a photo of the attacker?" Professor McGonagall asked eagerly. Dumbledore didn't answer. He pried open the back of the camera. "Oh, Merlin!" Madame Pomfrey exclaimed. A stream of heat hissed out of the camera. Even Harry, who was 3 beds away, smelled the pungent smell of burning plastic. "Melted!" Madame Pomfrey said in surprise, "It actually melted." "What does this mean, Dumbledore?" Professor McGonagall asked eagerly. "This means," said Dumbledore, "that the Chamber of Secrets has indeed been opened again." Madame Pomfrey covered her mouth with her hands. Professor McGonagall looked at Dumbledore blankly. "But Albus, you must know, who?" "The question is not who," Dumbledore said, focusing on Colin. "The question is, how?" Harry could see the look on Professor McGonagall's face in the shadows and knew that she, like him, had not understood Dumbledore's words. Chapter 26, Rescue in the Opposite Direction. How did Ginny Weasley open the Chamber of Secrets? She can't be the heir of Slytherin. After Dumbledore returned to the office, he began to think. While in the school doctor's office, McGonagall thought he might know who had opened the Chamber of Secrets. In fact, Dumbledore did know. He had suspected Draco Malfoy before due to Ginny's misleading, but after this attack by the time, someone had already revealed the identity of the real murderer. As the principal, he has too many insiders in the school. And this whistleblower isn't even a human being, but... is it a portrait? Last night, just as Cyrus petrified Colin, Dumbledore arrived. He thought that even if Dumbledore had known Ginny's secret before, it would be impossible for him to control his every move, right? Dumbledore said that he happened to come downstairs to bring hot chocolate, but how could there be so many coincidences in this world? He quickly thought about where the problem lay. The portraits in the castle could not simply be regarded as decorations. They had their own thoughts and served Dumbledore. When Dumbledore wants to know some clues in the castle and when the time comes, he just asks them, or they will take the initiative to report the news, and Dumbledore will know everything. Cyrus had deliberately ignored this point because the original Riddle in the book had also ignored this point. Why did Dumbledore not do anything when he knew about the heir? Because he thought that he was in control and used Riddler as a stepping stone for the boy who lived. When Tom Riddle released the basilisk for the first time, he killed Myrtle without even leaving the bathroom. He usually let the basilisk move in the pipes, so naturally, there was no portrait to see him. When Cyrus made his first attack, he was also at the door of the bathroom just like in the book, so he once again avoided the portrait's eyes. But when he attacked for the second time, he directly let the basilisk wander in the corridor, which exposed his position. At least, the location of the secret room has not been exposed yet, Cyrus said to himself. Every time he went to the secret room, he would cast a disillusionment spell on himself just in case, and there were no portraits in the bathroom. Moreover, Cyrus didn't mind too much about Dumbledore knowing part of his information. It would be beneficial for me to make him think he has everything under control, Cyrus thought. Dumbledore must have subjectively believed that the person who started this turmoil was Tom Riddle. Under this premise, he would definitely want to see whether the two people in the prophecy would fight, or in other words, will Harry Potter, the enemy Voldemort personally selected for himself, shine again after defeating Riddle? As for him, as the principal, he only needs to ensure the safety of the students for the time being. It's a pity. The prophecy has long been irrelevant because the soul in the diary no longer belongs to Tom Riddle. Cyrus laughed. This was the result that Dumbledore could never have imagined. When he carefully followed Cyrus's layout and waited for Harry Potter to complete the test again, he'll discover that the boss prepared for him this semester is missing. That will interesting. After petrifying Colin, he returned to Ginny's dormitory. Cyrus climbed out of bed and had a good night's sleep. This made Ginny look a lot better the next day, but she was still a little pale, and her body temperature was a little lower than the average person's. This was a sign that Ginny's life force was passing away, but he did not return her body to Ginny. Instead, after washing up, he came to the Gryffindor common room. Hermione was already sitting on the sofa reading a book. "It's that powerful potion. You got up so early. You are so punctual." Hermione looked up and said, "Ron hasn't gotten up yet." As soon as she finished speaking, she saw a red-haired man jumping out in a hurry. "Hey, you guys are already here? Sorry, I slept a little longer," Ron said quickly. Hermione closed the book with a snap and whispered, "Let's go." The three people immediately walked outside together. "Where are you going?" Percy emerged from nowhere and looked at Ron suspiciously. "Going out for a walk, what's wrong?" Ron responded, not to be outdone. "I just hope you don't go to the women's bathroom and take Ginny with you." Percy was very dissatisfied with Ron's lack of respect for him and immediately said sternly. Last time, he caught Ron wandering into the bathroom on the 3rd floor. Ron retorted with a blush. "What does this have to do with you, and besides, I don't see anything wrong with Ginny going to the ladies' room." This left Percy speechless. 10 minutes later, in a cubicle of Myrtle's bathroom, Cyrus saw the compound potion with his own eyes for the first time. "It looks absolutely disgusting. It's not fully formed yet. There are also bicorn horns and black African tree snake skins that can only be stolen in Snape's office." Hermione stirred the thick, green stuff. It looked like crushed leaves mixed with black soil, while throwing the two-eared grass into the crucible. "And we also need some hair or nails from Slytherin students. This is easy." After a while, Harry, who had grown bones all night, came out of the school hospital. He walked around in circles to find his friends and didn't even think of the bathroom until he met Percy, so he rushed over immediately. He wasn't surprised to see Ginny there, after all, he was the one who leaked the news yesterday. So, he couldn't wait to tell what happened last night. "Colin was petrified when he was coming to see me." Harry looked guilty. "We already know," Hermione said, "they just met Professor McGonagall on the way here who was talking with Professor Flitwick about it." Although Ron didn't like Colin very much, he couldn't help but feel angry at this time. "We'd better get Malfoy to confess as soon as possible. The sooner the better. He has been depressed since the Quidditch match. He is just venting his anger and it happens to be Colin who suffered because of it." After a brief moment of anger, they cheered up again. After all, Colin could still be saved. "By the way, there's one more thing," Harry told Dobby's story again. This made them even more convinced that Malfoy was the murderer. "Lucius Malfoy must have opened the Chamber of Secrets while he was at school here, and now he's teaching dear little Draco to do it. That's obvious. However, I do wish Dobby had told you what was inside. What kind of monster is this? I really don't understand. It's sneaking around in the school, how come no one notices it?" "Maybe it can make itself invisible," Hermione said, poking some leeches into the bottom of the cauldron, "or it can disguise itself, turn into a piece of armor or something. I read about color changing in the book The Story of the Ghoul." Seeing her working alone, Cyrus also helped and poured some dead lacewings on top of the leech. Harry then told what Dobby had done to him. "So Dobby didn't let us get on the train and broke your arm?" Ron shook his head. "You know what, Harry? If he kept rescuing you, you would just die by his hands. First Lockhart, then Dobby, you are really having a bad time," Cyrus also said. Chapter 27, Invisibility Cloak. The news that Colin Creevey had been attacked and now lay dead in hospital spread only on Monday morning. So all of a sudden, all the little wizards in the school felt in danger and did not dare to act alone. During this time, without telling the teacher, everyone exchanged amulets, and a ton of amulets plus some other things to protect themselves. This practice soon became popular in the school, and Neville Longbottom bought a big smelly green onion, a pointed amethyst, and a rotting salamander tail. The result was a lingering stench in the common room that even Cyrus couldn't stand. "Neville, you don't need these things. You are a pureblood and will not be attacked." Cyrus fanned his nose, trying to let in fresh air. "But he attacked Filch first. And everyone knows that I I am almost a squib, he said in fear and embarrassment. Cyrus couldn't stand the smell, so he simply returned his body to Ginny and continued to study alchemy and magic in his inner space. Well, where am I? Oh, the common room. Hello, Mr. Riddle, is the Quidditch match over? Can you show me? Ginny asked drowsily. Hearing Ginny's question, Cyrus remembered that he hadn't returned her body to Ginny in the past few days, but fortunately, he had memorized all the scenes of the Quidditch match, although his mind was distracted. Yes, my eyes didn't miss any details of that match. And it's been over 2 days, Ginny. Today is Monday, Cyrus said seriously. It's Monday. Ginny was stunned. She didn't expect that Mr. Riddle would use her body for so long this time. Did something happen, Mr. Riddle? Colin Creevey was attacked. Cyrus tried to make his statement sound more serious. Colin. Ginny's eyes widened and she looked very uneasy. She was sitting at the same table with Colin Creevey in Charms class, and the two of them were good friends who could communicate together. But now, Colin was attacked. Yes, this is all my fault. When the cat was killed before, I thought it was a prank and didn't pay much attention to it. Moreover, it was me who suggested that he should sneak out to see Harry at night. If not for this, he would have not gone there and probably, he won't be killed. Cyrus said in a tone of responsibility. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened again. I want to find out who is the murderer, so I plan to break into Slytherin with Harry and the others to see if they can find a clue. It's not your fault, Mr. Riddle. Ginny said forcefully, who knows how crazy that Slytherin heir is, if not Colin it will be someone else. His purpose is to get rid of all the muggles. He also told Ginny about the Polyjuice Potion to prevent the secret from being exposed. Sorry Ginny, I may have to borrow your body a lot during this time. It doesn't matter, Mr. Riddle, it would be great if we could find the heir of Slytherin sooner. Ginny shook her head. Ginny could completely understand Mr. Riddle's self-blame at this time, so she agreed to Cyrus' request without hesitation. And she had almost forgotten about that Quidditch match. So in the following period, Ginny had less time to wake up to consciousness. In December, it began to snow heavily at Hogwarts. Professor McGonagall brought a large stack of forms and asked those who planned to stay in school to fill out applications. Malfoy is going to stay at school for Christmas, Harry said in surprise. This is so suspicious. But the Polyjuice Potion hasn't been brewed yet, Hermione said urgently. We must steal the potion in potions class this Thursday, otherwise we won't be able to make it in time. It's best to make a fool of yourself. Both Harry and Ron looked ugly. If they were asked to steal the potion, Harry would rather confront Voldemort. I'll steal it. Cyrus took the initiative to take on the job. You create some chaos in class, and I'll sneak in. What? No. I can't let you get expelled. Ron said with a look of death, I'd better go. Hermione quickly refused, I can go because I have no criminal record. It will be very easy for Snape to notice that there is one less student in the class if one of go, am I wrong? Cyrus asked rhetorically. But Snape's office is at the back of the classroom. How could you sneak in while we were in class? There is a way. Cyrus looked at Harry, who was determined to go to Snape's office. I can borrow your invisibility cloak. I almost forgot that I still have the invisibility cloak, Harry said suddenly. Every time he uses up his invisibility cloak, he throws it around, as if it's not a Deathly Hallows but a tattered trench coat. In the evening, Cyrus got Harry's invisibility cloak, and that night, he wore the cloak and wandered around the castle. What's so special about the legendary Deathly Hallows? In his opinion, the magic power of this invisibility cloak is no more powerful than a perfect illusion spell. Compared with the invincible Elder Wand and the resurrection stone that can resurrect the dead, it is indeed a bit mediocre. If you can't hide from Moody's evil eye, how can you hide from the eye of death? Well, the legend is just a legend. As Dumbledore said, the three Peverell brothers were just very powerful and dangerous wizards who successfully created these extremely powerful artifacts. The story of the Deathly Hallows is just that. It's like some sort of legend that has arisen around these inventions. This possibility is indeed greater. Since Nicolas Flamel can create a magic stone that can turn any stone into gold and achieve immortality, it is not so difficult to accept that the three brothers can create a resurrection stone that can bring people back to life. The power of the Elder Wand and the curse also seem to be closely related. But regardless of whether the legend of the Deathly Hallows is true or false, the three artifacts do have their own special features. Cyrus stroked his cold cloak and slowly reached the 7th floor. I need a room where I can study magic items. I need a room where I can study magic items. I need a room where I can study magic items. When he said these words in his mind 3 times and turned around under the portrait of the trolls, a door appeared on the blank wall. Cyrus took off his cloak, opened the door, and walked in. The door disappeared instantly. This is a room that is somewhat similar to the potions classroom, but not exactly the same. In addition to various crucibles, there are also many mechanical artifacts, or artifacts that look like mechanical artifacts. In fact, they are all products of alchemy. In the magical world, alchemy and potions are not completely independent, but an intersection. Chapter 28, Refining Failure. The original goal of the development of alchemy was to transform base metals into precious metals, especially gold. Later, different researches were developed, such as creating elixirs, finding the Philosopher's Stone, and creating artificial humans. To this day, the only person who has achieved the goal of turning stone into gold and scratched the doors to immortality in this field is Nicolas Flamel. However, in the course of its development, various magical props have appeared, such as pensive, time turners, vanishing cabinets, etc. Although these props have nothing to do with the 3 ultimate goals of alchemy, they still have very magical effects. Cyrus used a spell to spread the invisibility cloak. He had read a lot of alchemy books carefully these days, and it was not difficult to discover what was unusual about this cloak. First of all, the material is completely different from ordinary cloaks. Ordinary invisibility cloaks are made of the fur of the invisible beast, a silver magical animal similar to an ape, but the cloak in Cyrus's hand feels much colder to the touch. The invisible beast is the only magical animal that can be invisible. Its ability represents 0 in the runes. If the material of this cloak is not the hair of the invisible beast, what else could it be? Cyrus raised his wand, and the tip of the wand emitted a faint light. The light shone on the transparent cloak, immediately reflecting the texture of the cloak. The texture contains countless runes. Cyrus clearly saw Duels and Algies, the former's meaning is immortality, and the latter heralding protection. In ancient times, it was very common for runes to be used in alchemical products. These words had great magical power, but they could not be released through spells. Engraving them on magic artifacts can bring out the power of these words even more. But another problem is that runes are obscure and difficult to understand. This is not just a foreign language. In fact, even if most people understand the meaning of the words, they may not be able to resonate with the words and absorb the magic in the inspired words. Nowadays, rune writing has become a subject similar to translation, as if it has no other use except for archaeology. There is indeed a powerful disembodiment spell hidden within this cloak. The powerful spell and the immortal material. This must be the combination that makes this cloak's magic never fade away. Cyrus speculated that the Elder Wand had a similar effect. The material of the Elder Wand is elderberry and thestral hair. Although the number of elderberries is small, you can still find them if you really look for it. But Grigovich continued to imitate the old curse and never created any wand that could rival it. Cyrus speculates that the secret to the Elder Wand's power may lie in its curse itself. Both Dumbledore and Harry believed that the power of the Elder Wand would be destroyed upon the normal death of the original wielder. This is because the curse of the wand has been broken, so the legendary wand will become as ordinary as an ordinary wand. Then Cyrus lowered his cloak. He couldn't have the cloak for too long. In just a few days, it was impossible to completely decipher the mystery of the cloak. In contrast, it is more important to study how to make the Philosopher's Stone. Opening Nico's manual, ignoring the dreams and revelations, Cyrus saw this passage. The Philosopher's Stone is the oldest and most mysterious or least known, the most incomprehensible in nature, blessed and sacred. It is the mystery of mysteries. It is the moral and divine power, it is the limit and purpose of all things in the world and is the final and incredible result of all the sages' operations. It is the perfect essence of all elements, an indestructible object that cannot be damaged or destroyed by any element, and is the 5th element. It is owned by itself the double and living mercury of the spirit, which deals with all weak and imperfect metals. It is the eternal radiance, the elixir that cures all diseases, the phoenix of grace and glory in heaven, and the most precious treasure of all treasures. An important asset to the whole of nature. The refining materials of the magic stone are mercury, sulfur, and salt. It must be refined with the 4 elements, heat, cold, dryness, and moisture, to break the internal and external elements of matter. Cyrus poured mercury into the crucible and lit a flame. Fire represents heat and dryness, water represents coldness and moisture. While constantly stirring the crucible, his magic power flowed into the mercury. Then, he poured in sulfur, salt blocks, and earth. The earth is hot and moist. The contents in the crucible began to boil, and the color slowly turned red. The magic stone in the record is indeed red, but the current mass is difficult to shape. The flames continue to burn, the water in the crucible is boiled, and the cold and moisture are driven away, until finally, only a little bit of red is left in the crucible in the form of powder. Cyrus twisted the powder with his fingers, feeling no breath of life in it. Failed. He was not discouraged and continued to look through Nico's notes. However, even Nicolas Flamel himself did not understand how he succeeded. For centuries he tried to recreate that miracle but never succeeded a second time. The formula for the Philosopher's Stone can't be that simple. I'm afraid Nico's manuscript won't be of much help. Cyrus thought. Nicolas Flamel must have had some unforeseen accidents and coincidences in the process of refining the Philosopher's Stone, and this coincidence was something that he himself did not notice. In the magical world, sometimes even a gust of wind or a ray of sunshine may affect the results of alchemy or potions. Sometimes even sound is a critical factor. For example, when practicing animagus, you need the dew that cannot see the sun, and you need the first thunder in the storm as a revelation. Cyrus felt some urgency. He could indeed be resurrected without using the Philosopher's Stone, but this would only be possible if he absorbed all of Ginny's life force. But in this case, Ginny would definitely die. But he had already regarded Ginny as his friend, and he couldn't do such a thing to harm his friend's life for his own resurrection. If it really doesn't work, I will have to. If he cannot successfully refine the Philosopher's Stone by the end of this school year, he will have no choice but to leave Hogwarts in the same state as in the movie. No, it may even be worse than the state in the original work. In the original book, Ginny's state was too dangerous, and it can almost be said that her life was hanging by a thread. Maybe I need to change my host. Cyrus put away the cauldron. Chapter 29, Stealing Potion Materials. On Thursday, Cyrus waited for Harry's potions class. The light in the potions classroom was very dark. This classroom was originally underground, and Snape would close all the windows tightly every time he came in. If there weren't a few torches in the classroom, maybe there wouldn't be any light at all, making everything out of sight. But this cannot be blamed on Snape's inner darkness. Although this is the case, most potions cannot see strong light, and strong light usually causes potions to fail. Cyrus, wearing an invisibility cloak, slowly followed Harry and walked in with the crowd. While Harry walked through the dense crowd of tables to reach his own cauldron, Cyrus continued forward until he reached the corner of the podium, where there was a wooden door behind which was the door to Snape's office. Snape seemed to be carrying the wind as he walked, his wizard robes fluttering up and down like the wings of a giant bat. After he entered the classroom, he first glanced at all the students with a sharp gaze and then looked at Harry. His gaze stayed on his body for a few seconds, let out a sneer, and then said, "Today, let's refine the swelling potion. I hope each of you has a sound mind to understand the steps in the textbook. The potion can't be too thick or too thin, otherwise." He smiled coldly and looked at Gryffindor. The little wizards, especially Neville, Seamus, and Harry. He stared at their faces for a long time. "If there is an accident, it depends on whether I am happy to give you anti-swelling potion or not." In fact, Harry's talent for potions was not bad, but what the worst part was that Neville and Seamus were on the table to his right. Putting these two little chicks together, there will always be an accident. Every time there is no accident in potions class, it will be on the news. And when Neville is in a hurry, it will inevitably affect Harry. Even if not, Snape can still follow Neville's work and deduct points from Harry for poor performance. If Neville made a mistake, why didn't you help Neville when you were sitting so close? There is no unity and friendship at all. 10 points from Gryffindor. If Neville didn't dare you help Neville? Do you think your potion refining is excellent? 10 points from Gryffindor. Snape's words aroused a lot of dissatisfaction. It was simply naming names and saying that Gryffindor would no longer be treated, but no one dared to say anything. Only the Slytherin snakes felt the professor's favor, and they all laughed in low voices. Eventually, Snape himself broke the silence. "Now, why don't you start?" Neville immediately started operating in a panic. "What should I add first?" His round face turned red, and his hands holding the materials kept shaking. "You should grind the herbs into powder first, it says in the book," Harry whispered. But he immediately regretted it. If he hadn't helped Neville, it might have been easier to cause a commotion so Ginny could open the door. Snape immediately spoke sternly, "No whispering." Then, he walked towards Neville's table. Neville, who was already flustered and nervous, now had a completely blank mind. Cyrus even doubted whether he could even crush herbs and pulverize them into powder. Now, Snape started to find trouble to bully Neville. Cyrus simply picked up his wand and fired a spark into Crabbe's cauldron. Then, Crabbe's potion exploded and showered the entire class. Everyone screamed under the attack of the splashing swelling potion. Malfoy was doused in the face and his nose inflated like a balloon. Crabbe stumbled around with his hands over his eyes swollen as big as lunch plates. The classroom suddenly became chaotic, miserable screams continued one after another, and Snape roared loudly, "Quiet! Quiet!" Cyrus thought that this much commotion should be good. Glancing up, he realized that Snape's vicious gaze was on Harry and his group, obviously suspicious of them. Then he walked towards Snape's office with confidence. When passing Malfoy, he even picked out a few strands of hair. Malfoy screamed even louder. "Students who were splashed by the potion came to me to get anti-swelling medicine," Snape said, "and when I find out who did it." Cyrus didn't hear the next words, having slipped into Snape's office. The horn of a bicorn, the skin of an African tree snake. He raised his wand, and the tip of the wand lit up. With the faint light, a whole wall of bottles and cans appeared in front of Cyrus' eyes. "Snape has so many good things." Cyrus was not polite. In addition to the two materials, he also took out other useful materials. Most of them are materials that can be used to replenish a person's life energy. He wasn't worried at all about the possibility of being discovered by Snape, so what if he was discovered? Not knowing who the real thief was, he could only report it to Dumbledore, but Dumbledore had long known that there was a ghost of Voldemort causing trouble. Although he has not yet figured out whether it is Voldemort himself who controls all this, or his Horcrux, or just an evil spell or prop. But no matter what, he chose to wait and see, choosing the fateful enemy handpicked by Voldemort himself to fight against. Since a miracle occurred 11 years ago, and Harry Potter also defeated Voldemort last semester, no matter how weak Voldemort was at the time, it was impossible for a first-year wizard to be able to fight against him. But the result ended in Quirrell's death. In this case, Dumbledore believes that this time, Harry Potter may be able to defeat Voldemort's conspiracy again. And it can be seen from Quirrell's tragic situation last semester that Tom Riddle's possession alone will consume a person's life. If he does not replenish some energy, Ginny Weasley's life will be in danger. Although Dumbledore was not in a hurry to stop himself, he also did not want to see an innocent little wizard die. Cyrus took advantage of this and dared to take Snape's potion so unscrupulously. When he put the potion away and quietly slipped out of the office, Snape had applied anti-swelling potions to all the students injured by the swelling potion. At this time, he was standing in front of Crabbe's cauldron, bowed his head, and pondered. Humph! A weak spark. His dark eyes swept across all the little wizards, and finally stopped on Harry and the others. What a clever little trick! Using magic spells in the potions class will be your downfall. Mr. Harry Potter, why don't you take out your wand and let me check what spells you've cast? Chapter 30, No I didn't. Snape's annoying eyes seemed to want to penetrate Harry from head to toe, which made Harry feel very disgusted. Asking for a wand? It seemed that Snape was planning to use the wand history spell, Priori Incantatem, to see what magic Harry had used. Cyrus thought and then laughed again. It's a good idea, but it's a pity that you got the wrong person, Snape. Cyrus put on his cloak and walked out. At this time, Snape had already snatched Harry's wand to cast the Priori Incantatem spell. The tip of the holly wand burst out with the shadow of a spell. It was not a red spark, but an expansion spell. Snape didn't use Priori Incantatem but used Capacious Extremis. Sir, this is the expansion charm taught by Flitwick in our last lesson. Harry looked at Snape stubbornly. Snape looked silently at the green eyes under his lenses, miraculously not pursuing the matter further. Instead, he changed the subject. Really? It seems that our Mr. Special seems to think that with the expansion charm, there is no need to learn how to prepare an expansion potion. I didn't, Professor. No? Then why is your potion so diluted? Snape found a fault. 10 points from Gryffindor. 10 points from Gryffindor. Harry dramatically imitated Snape's way of deducting points from him in the bathroom. I don't know if you saw it, Ginny, but he was obviously looking for trouble on purpose. It doesn't count, Harry, your potion was indeed too diluted. Hermione said matter-of-factly, but I didn't expect that there is such a spell, the wand history spell? We were almost exposed, but luckily he didn't use that. And Ginny was able to steal the potion. The strange thing is that Snape seemed to have forgotten about it later and didn't mention it at all in the second half of the class. Ron said strangely, and Harry, can you not do it in the future? Not do what? Harry asked. You looked at Snape so recklessly, and I was afraid that you would start a fight at that time. Or kiss. Ron thought but didn't say this half of the sentence. Wait, Ron, what did you just say? Cyrus felt as if a needle had been stabbed into his head. Has Harry been looking at Snape? That's right, what's wrong? Harry said disapprovingly. Although he can deduct points from me, I don't want to give in. If he wants to deduct points, just deduct them. I don't want him to think that I am cowardly. This will only make him happier. Foolish. You are wrong, Harry. If you don't look at him, Snape will definitely find a place to secretly drop the pearl. Cyrus said jokingly. But that's actually not the point is looking at each other. Everyone knew that Snape was a master of occlumency. Even Voldemort couldn't see the flaws in his occlumency. It would be a different matter if Voldemort picked up the wand and was determined to know Snape's thoughts. But in this case, Snape would probably become an idiot. An occlumency actually appeared to prevent Legilimency. A master of occlumency cannot be too bad at Legilimency. The moment Harry and Snape looked at each other, Cyrus was afraid that Snape had learned all the secrets. As for the expansion curse and his bad attitude, it was just Snape acting. It was he who didn't want people to know, or in other words, didn't want to admit that he was protecting James Potter's son. What made Cyrus feel a little irritated was that now Snape probably knew that Ginny was also involved with the Golden Trio. When he was operating in Hogwarts, he had another spy that he needed to pay attention to. But this is a bit helpless. After all, Ginny was still a young girl, so her body is not that sensitive to magic. Cyrus felt a little annoyed and just hoped nothing would happen. The narrow toilet stall was constantly steaming, and the thick potion was bubbling like a ball of hot mud. Hermione processed the potion ingredients with difficulty and poured the powdered snakeskin and a small piece of horn into it. That's it, it will probably take more than a week. Let's go out first, my neck is almost stiff. I don't know why you two are still crowding the place if you can't help. She complained. On the other side, Snape returned to his classroom in silence. The horn of the bicorn and the skin of the African tree snake, the trio are going to make a polyjuice potion? Hermione, if you can really make it, I will give you a few compliments. The corners of his mouth were slightly twitched, and it looked like his cheeks were twitching. It flashed away like a tendon. It's a pity that Harry didn't inherit Lily's potion talent. As expected, the Polyjuice Potion should have been brewed by the know-it-all lady. Harry and Ron were not qualified to help her. That first year Ginny Weasley is also quite talented. But Snape didn't like Hermione's rigid dogma. No creativity. There is indeed a big gap between Hermione's potion skills and Snape's, which can be seen in the Half-Blood Prince season. After Harry got Snape's old notebook, he immediately took away Hermione's limelight in potions class and became the first place. He did not intend to pursue the matter of Harry and others stealing the potion to refine the compound potion. Now, Dumbledore personally admitted that the Chamber of Secrets had been opened. It was not a bad thing to let these golden kids mess with it, but... How dare she steal my fire dragon blood? It costs 17 sequos to buy an ounce. Snape gritted his teeth and looked at a huge container placed on the wall cabinet. Only a little bit of the blood-red liquid was left in it. This meant that at least 6 pints of dragon blood had been stolen by the thief. He lost 120 galleons in dragon blood alone. And it wasn't just the dragon's blood that they stole. 3 drops of phoenix tears, I shamelessly asked for these from Dumbledore. All the venom of rune snakes, I'm not sad about this, after all, I raised a nest of snakes that can extract the venom at any time, but how dare you take away my snakes too? Snape felt as if his chest was exploding. The boxes where he originally kept snakes were now empty, and even a few newly bred snake eggs had been taken away by Cyrus. A pinch of Chimera's mane. Snape pinched his own philtrum to prevent himself from passing out. As a XXXXX dangerous Chimera beast, there is only one record of being killed by a wizard so far. Therefore, the magic materials of this magical animal are very difficult to obtain and can be said to be priceless. Then, he counted the stolen materials one by one. Till the end. What? Even the large bottle of morning dew? This is quite cheap. You can get it anywhere. He seemed to be crazy, his chest heaved violently, but he smiled, and his voice sounded like he was biting a piece of iron. But for this jar of morning dew, I bent down to collect leaf by leaf in the Forbidden Forest, and almost broke my spine. Thud. Snape passed out. I always felt that Snape wouldn't give up easily. Now I just hope he doesn't find out that we stole his things. By the way, you didn't secretly take more, did you? Ron looked at Cyrus alertly. Cyrus took out a few snake eggs from his sleeves, put them on the wand, and roasted them, then tilted his head and thought for a while. No, I didn't. Ginny shrugged. Don't worry so much, I'll treat you to baked eggs. Ron cracked one open without hesitation, and the scent of snake eggs immediately spread. Fragrant. Chapter 31, Lockhart, what can a stinky potion refiner do? As soon as Snape woke up, he rushed to Dumbledore's office. Now, he will not come back with these magic materials because he has no evidence. The Ministry of Magic has never considered Legilimency as evidence because memory can be modified. But the losses totaling more than 1,000 galleons had to be reimbursed by someone who was taken advantage of. This person must not be the one being taken advantage of. When Snape rushed to the headmaster's office angrily, he discovered that another annoying peacock was also there. Please wait, Severus, Dumbledore said quietly. Good afternoon, Snape. Lockhart showed what he thought was a charming smile, which immediately annoyed Snape even more. Why did you come here too? Could it be that you found out that I plan to apply to the headmaster to organize a dueling club? So you came here to be my assistant, hey? Duel club. Lockhart's words briefly pulled Snape out of his annoyance, and then came his contemptuous gaze, as if to say, you will teach dueling. But Lockhart had no idea. He probably thinks he is the perfect candidate. Dumbledore, the situation is very serious now. Someone has been hurt. I think it is very necessary to organize a dueling club and fully train everyone in case they need to defend themselves one day. Protect yourself in the same way I have used countless times. And I am also a member of the Defense Against the Dark Arts Association, I think there is no one more suitable than me. He looked at Dumbledore with burning eyes, expecting to get a positive response from Dumbledore. It hardly took Dumbledore long to agree. This excited Lockhart greatly. Believe me, you will definitely be glad that you made this decision. He said, you are in luck. Although I promised you to teach this course, the duel club does not count. This is my own small contribution to my little student's safety. No need to owe me. Thank you so much. Dumbledore said playfully, so, let me think about the candidate for your assistant. What about Filius? He was a duel champion when he was young. Dumbledore strongly recommended it. Lockhart's expression changed immediately when he heard the word dueling champion and he paced back and forth anxiously in the office, but he soon thought of a suitable excuse. Filius, although he was indeed very powerful when he was young, but now, I doubt whether he can keep up with my pace. To tell you the truth, if wizard duels hadn't been cancelled in the UK, now maybe I would be the champion. Scoff. Hearing this, even Snape found it very funny. At this time, Lockhart's eyes turned to Snape. He recalled Snape's behavior during school days. It seemed that he was often bullied by several Gryffindors. They were 4 years apart, and Lockhart wasn't very aware of Snape's performance during his school days. However, I still vaguely remember that there was a student in Slytherin House who didn't like to wash his hair and was often bullied by several people from Gryffindor. If this is the case, then he must have no ability. Also, what can a stinky-faced person who makes magic potions do? There's no way you can win a duel with the skill of burning a dry pot. Thinking of this, Lockhart's eyes lit up and he immediately used a provocation. Professor Snape, you are a suitable candidate. Forget it, I'm afraid my powerful magic might hurt you, I'd better think about others. Mr. Lockhart is worrying about hurting me? No need. Scoff. Snape laughed in anger, and looked at Lockhart with a very unkind look. It just so happens that I know a thing or two about dueling. That's great. Lockhart was afraid that Snape would refuse, so he rushed forward and slapped Snape's shoulders hard with both hands. That's it, Dumbledore. Snape will be mine. Mine assistant, I mean. Don't worry, I won't let the children's potions master be harmed. Snape swept his hand away from his shoulder in disgust, and at the same time rubbed the back of his hand mercilessly on his cloak. Now that you have reached an agreement, it couldn't be better, Dumbledore said happily, and he was about to see off the guests. Severus, may I know the reason for you coming here? Snape was brought back into anger by Dumbledore's words, and he spoke before Lockhart even left the headmaster's office. I'm going to report a few thieves to you, they stole my potion ingredients. Have you been robbed? Lockhart, who was about to step out of the principal's office door, immediately turned around and strode over. It seems that my dueling assistant has encountered a little trouble. But catching a thief is not something I am bragging about. If you have read my books, you will know that I have done it countless times. Finding clues and finding the murderer will never be a problem for me. He turned around enthusiastically and spared no effort to take over the matter. Leave it to me, and the thief can be caught and brought to justice as soon as tomorrow. But both Snape and Dumbledore ignored him. They had completed the communication just by looking into each other's eyes. The school director will compensate you for your losses. Dumbledore said, in addition, please pay attention. You don't need to tell me, I will pay attention to her. Snape flipped his cloak, turned, and left. What's wrong? Lockhart was still wondering if Snape wasn't here to ask for help. Why did you leave so suddenly? He didn't want to miss any opportunity to be in the limelight, so he quickly followed him and chirped in Snape's ear, seriously, Snape, if I take action, I will definitely be able to steal back your ingredients and win. Seeing as we are colleagues, I will help you for free, otherwise, it will be another price. Come on, take me to your office, I have an automatic tracking magic, just use it and you can find the thief that took your potions immediately. Snape shuddered when he thought of his ability to make Harry's hand bones disappear and heal with a spell, fearing that his spell would explode all his other potions. And the thought of Harry's hand bones being taken away made him even more annoyed. I don't have to be old-fashioned to protect that kid, but this guy actually dares to let him, Lily's son, get hurt. You're done, Peacock. Ah. Let's just focus on your dueling club, I will be happy to be your assistant. Snape smiled cruelly. Translation, wait to die. Devil face. But Lockhart was already lost in the illusion of his own glory. That's it. We will hold one before Christmas. You may be asked to help me give a small demonstration. Don't worry, it won't hurt you. We won't use powerful magic, only defensive magic, to remove your weapons and armor to protect yourself. Okay? This will not be difficult for you, it's just a disarming spell. No need to worry. Chapter 32, Snape, you better be. Cyrus felt targeted. Snape had been targeting him since he stole Snape's billion-dot collection last time. Usually, when I was wandering around the school, he would suddenly appear from time to time, looking at me unscrupulously with a pair of gloomy eyes, as if he was interrogating a criminal who had committed a heinous crime. Cyrus guessed that he probably wanted Legilimency, but it had no effect on him. As for class, not to mention, Snape almost had the words "I don't like you" written on his face. Miss Weasley, could you please tell me how many effects dragon blood has? During the last potions class before Christmas, Snape called out Cyrus very pointedly and asked a question that made him feel heartbroken. 12, sir. Cyrus stood up. He almost thought Snape was going to ask him what can you get by adding narcissus root powder to wormwood infusion. I didn't expect that it was just dragon blood that was useful. But this is indeed the content of the first-year textbook. The 12 uses of the fire dragon's blood were discovered and summarized by Headmaster Dumbledore. The blood of the fire dragon has the ability to stop bleeding, relieve pain, and treat. It can be used to make various cleansers, freckle removal potions, and treat warts. You're right, I could see that he was unhappy. Then, why don't you talk about the efficacy of phoenix tears? But sir, we didn't learn about the phoenix, Cyrus said without any sign of weakness. But I think you might need to know about the uses of the tears of the phoenix, the venom of the rune snake, the mane of the chimera. After all, you don't know what can save your life when you are poisoned, right? What do you say? He almost said openly that he already knew that you, Ginny Weasley, was the despicable thief. But Cyrus was unmoved and even expressed his gratitude. Thank you for your concern, Professor. If I can really get so many expensive medicinal materials, I will definitely remember your warning today. Snape became even more angry. Now, you should tell me what morning dew can be used for. I'm sorry, but I don't know. Maybe it's used to practice animagus. Cyrus shook his shoulders. Obviously, this is an extremely perfunctory answer, because Cyrus cannot have the pupa of the ghost-faced hawk moth. And it wasn't even his own body. You better be. said Snape angrily. For almost the whole class, Cyrus faced Snape's difficulties, but he resolved them one by one. In the end, Snape deducted 5 points from Gryffindor saying, "Because you were restless in your seat to go out before class was officially over. He doesn't like you." Luna's unique voice sounded like her soul had been pulled out. Cyrus turned his head and saw a girl with bulging eyes and a strange dress. "Obviously," Cyrus said. How could he beg a middle-aged teacher who was persecuted by him not long ago to like him? What's more, as we all know, the only person Snape likes is Lily. "You look strange, but you're much better than before." Luna shook her hair briskly and jumped away like an elf. Cyrus couldn't help but be surprised by the other party's amazing intuition. He separated from his Ravenclaw classmates on the 8th floor. As he walked through the foyer, he found many people gathered at the bulletin board in the common room. "What's going on here?" "They're going to have a dueling club. First party tonight." Fred and George, two good brothers, jumped out to explain to their sister Ginny. "I have a plan." Fred hugged his sister's shoulders with such enthusiasm and said excitedly, "Remember the last time you cast a spell on Marcus at the stadium?" "What? Are you worried that he will take revenge on me?" "He wouldn't do it unless he wanted to lose face," Fred said, "but I don't know if he would get other second and third year Slytherin students to deal with you." "But we absolutely know that it won't affect you, right?" George and Fred looked at him with affirmative eyes. "Of course, I'm not afraid. He can ask Snape to come in person." Cyrus didn't take it to heart at all. "You're right. If you were so confident in front of Harry, he would definitely fall in love with you." Cyrus just rolled his eyes, but neither brother paid it any mind. Fred continued, "We thought this was an opportunity as well. The Slytherin guys have been giving us trouble these days. It's not often that we get the chance to have an honest brawl. So? What do you want me to do? Find the underclassmen in Slytherin. It would be better if it was Draco Malfoy." George added, "Don't forget that his father also gave us trouble during the summer vacation. Give them a good fix." The two people said in unison, resolutely. "If they're going to cause trouble, then of course I'm not going to back down." Cyrus nodded. Probably hearing their movements, Percy emerged from the crowd, blocked Cyrus behind him as if guarding against a thief, and looked at Fred and George warily. "What are you two talking to Ginny about?" "It's nothing." The twins immediately looked at each other and raised the corners of their mouths. "Hee, I just feel that the Slytherin students are in trouble. No matter what you are going to do, I advise you not to lead Ginny astray," Percy warned, "or I will tell Mother." With that said, Percy dragged Cyrus away from the two troublemakers. Fred and George looked at each other, and then made exaggerated, funny, and very hurt expressions at the same time. "Oh my God! He actually thinks that we are going to lead Ginny. Ginny doesn't need us to lead the way," George added. "The implication is that Ginny is a genius in her own right. She dares to cast a spell on 7th graders in the 1st grade. Who else can do it? Another meaning is that it was not them who led Ginny to evil, but someone else. They had long since discovered that Ginny often squeezed into Myrtle's toilet with Harry and the others during this period. With 4 people together, it's not just intriguing, it's simply exciting." "Ignore them," Percy said as he patted his little sister Ginny on the shoulder. "You're not like them, Ginny." His tone was full of great anticipation. "Almost all the professors have praised you and said that your performance is very good. Hermione also told me that you have a talent for learning spells. This is a good thing," Percy said. He automatically ignored Snape because Snape never complimented anyone, let alone Gryffindor. "If we continue like this, you can be like me and become a prefect in the 5th year and get all the OWL certificates. After the 7th year, we can strive to become the president of the student union, and then enter the Ministry of Magic after graduation to seek a good job." "Position," Percy said excitedly. "Being the president of the Hogwarts Student Union still carries a lot of weight. After all, it is the only magic school in the UK." Almost as soon as Percy graduated, he became Barty Crouch's assistant. Although there are some other factors involved, there is no doubt that if you are planning to get a promising job at the Ministry of Magic, being the president of the Students' Union is enough to make the road smooth for you. Maybe you think these goals are too far away into the future, but I think you should make plans early. First of all, I suggest that you take all elective subjects in the 3rd year. I can't say more about the specific reasons. I just hope you can do it. Although it's a bit tiring, but you know, in a family like ours, many people actually look down on us. Percy paused, swallowed his words, and then patted Cyrus hard on the back. I shouldn't say this to you, but no matter what, work hard, okay? Don't imitate Fred, Red and George, they are not good role models. And don't learn from Ron, he is too playful and has no goals at all. He never knows what he is doing. Chapter 33, Duel Club. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Cyrus and Harry returned to the auditorium together. The appearance of the auditorium had completely changed at this moment. The long dining table disappeared, and a gilded stage appeared along one wall, illuminated by hundreds of candles floating in the sky. The ceiling became as dark as velvet again, and almost all the students from the school were here, crowded together, everyone holding their own wands, their faces full of excitement. The four people squeezed into the crowd relying on their small size. Hermione said with difficulty, I don't know who will teach us. I heard that Professor Flitwick was a dueling champion when he was young. Maybe it will be him. No matter who it is, as long as it's not Snape or Locke. Before Harry could finish his words, he saw two people he least wanted to see walking onto the stage. One of them was the dazzling Lockhart in a purple robe, and the other? It was Snape with a gloomy face, who wore black robes that had remained unchanged for thousands of years. His appearance looked like a stark contrast to Lockhart. Harry's unfinished words turned into a sad moan. Oh, Merlin! Professor Lockhart will teach us duel. Hermione is very happy, she still thinks that Lockhart is as great as what is written in his books. As for his stupid behavior, they were all ignored under Lockhart's shining face. It's hard to imagine that Hermione could be so irrational. Lockhart alone made her fascinated. Sure enough, even in the wizarding world, appearance is a thing comparable to a magic potion. Otherwise, Tom Riddle wouldn't be so successful. He's also just a scumbag who goes around deceiving young girls, rich women, and high-ranking officials just because he's good-looking. He even deceived female ghosts. Condemn. Must be condemned. What? Now I look like him, right? That's okay then. Come inside, be quiet. Haha. No need to be so excited. Can everyone see me? Can everyone hear me? Great. Lockhart felt the enthusiastic support of hundreds of female students, and suddenly became more excited. Sparing no effort, the performance started. That's right, Professor Dumbledore allowed me to open this small dueling club to fully train everyone in case you need to defend yourself one day. Protect yourself in the same way that I have used countless times. For details on this, please see my published work. Oh. Let me introduce my assistant, Professor Snape, Lockhart said, grinning broadly. He told me that he himself knew a thing or two about dueling, and he generously agreed to help me with a small demonstration before class, he said. Ahaha, I don't want to worry you little guys, after I finish the demonstration with him, I will return your potions teacher intact to you. You guys, don't be afraid. Wouldn't it be great if they fought it out and both sides got injured? Ron whispered in Harry's ear. Come on, I'm afraid Lockhart can't even catch Snape's move. Cyrus shook his head and said, I heard that Snape is the most powerful among the four head professors. If he could freely use black magic, then Snape would indeed be stronger than the other three head professors. His talent was also appreciated by Voldemort. After all, he was a genius who developed several types of magic during his school days. And according to Sirius, at the age of 11, Snape knew more charms and curses than most 7th grade students. Harry agreed very much with what Cyrus said, because he saw Snape's upper lip curled up, showing a very scary look, like a cat playfully playing with a mouse, and he didn't understand that. Why the hell is Lockhart still smiling? If Snape had looked at him like that, he would have spread his legs and run in the opposite direction. There are always people who even deceive themselves in lies. It's really sad, don't you think? Cyrus whispered in Harry's ear. Ron looked at Ginny in surprise. Are you not shy now? Cyrus ignored him. At this point, Lockhart and Snape turned to each other and bowed. Lockhart did many tricks with his hands, but Snape just shook his head impatiently. Then they held their wands to their chests like arrows. The students all fell silent and watched this scene nervously. It was like a group of people watching the duel between two masters at the top of the Forbidden City, fearing that the slightest noise would affect the two masters. As you can see, we hold our wands in the normal dueling posture, Lockhart told the hushed crowd. On the count of 3, we will cast our first spell. Of course, none of us will use strong spells and harm the other person's life. I don't dare to bet. In response, Snape showed his teeth and smiled lowly. They both jerked their wands over their shoulders at the same time. 1 2 3. Snape recited the curse at lightning speed. Expelliarmus. Suddenly a dazzling red light flashed, and Lockhart was struck unsteadily. He flew backwards off the stage, crashed into the wall, then slid off and curled up on the floor. He was almost fooled. Didn't he agree that he is just a magic potion refining person? Why is he so strong? Malfoy and several other Slytherin students applauded. Hermione jumped up and down on tiptoe. Do you think he's okay? She screamed, covering her mouth with her fingers. Whatever. Harry and Ron said at the same time. Lockhart staggered to his feet, his hat falling off and his wavy curls standing on end. Looking at the doubtful looks of those young wizards, Lockhart realized that he had to regain control of the overall situation and correct his ugly appearance. He. So he rushed back to the stage, the remaining power of the spell making him dizzy and walking crookedly. Well, you see. It's a disarming charm, as you can see. I lost my wand. Thank you, Miss Brown. He got his wand back. He turned to Snape. Yes, Professor Snape, it's a great idea to show them this move. However, don't mind what I say. Your intention to do such a move just now was too obvious. I could have stopped you without any effort. But, I think that in order to increase their knowledge, I might as well let them see. He is so shameless. Cyrus twitched the corner of his mouth. He dared to say that even though he was obviously inferior to others. Snape must be regretting that he just used Expelliarmus. Sure enough, Snape looked murderous. Lockhart probably noticed it, so he quickly said. This is the end of the demonstration. Now I will come among you and divide you into groups of 2. Professor Snape, if you are willing to help me. They walked through the crowd and paired people up. Lockhart asked Neville and Justin Finch-Fletchley to form a pair, but Snape walked in front of Harry and the others first. I think the dream team should be broken up, he said with a smile. Weasley, you can form a pair with Finnegan. And Potter scoff. Harry subconsciously moved closer to Hermione. I don't think so. Snape said, with a cold smile on his face. Malfoy, come up here. Let's see what kind of person you can make the famous Potter into. Miss Granger, you can be paired with Miss Bursted. And as for you, Miss Ginny Weasley. The corners of his mouth turned up into an evil smile. Chapter 34, Levi Corpus. Cyrus saw Malfoy walking over arrogantly, followed by a tall and round girl, who was obviously the Miss Pastor that Snape was talking about. At the same time, he also saw Fred and George not far away hiding in the crowd and waving and cheering him up. Fred also tried his best to make lip syncs, telling him not to forget to teach the Slytherin students. As for you, Ginny Weasley, I think there is someone who would be willing to partner up with you. Snape sneered. Flint, here's your chance. He stepped aside half of his body, and then, a man stronger than a chimpanzee walked out with a cruel smile. The sounds in the hall suddenly became much quieter. Fred and George could no longer move their arms, as if they had been petrified by a basilisk. He finally went crazy. Ron couldn't bear it any longer and immediately spoke out his inner thoughts loudly. Snape immediately glared back with a fierce look, but this time Ron didn't give in at all. Isn't it crazy to ask a first-year student to go against a sixth year? Not to mention that Marcus Flint had been sneak attacked by Ginny before, so he was obviously prepared this time. Professor, I think this is too unreasonable. Percy walked out with a frown and stopped in front of Cyrus. I can pair up with Flint. It is true that he is a good student, but this does not mean that he is willing to obey all the unreasonable demands of a professor. The students are right. Lockhart rubbed his palms and said carefully. He didn't dare to refute Snape's opinion now, but Snape's allocation was too outrageous. We hold the club to teach young wizards to have a certain ability to resist when facing danger, so instead of. I think Flint is capable of playing a danger, what do you think? Snape said with a smile, or is it that Miss Weasley, who is good at sneak attacks, is now afraid to face his head-on? Others wanted to say something else, but were interrupted by Cyrus. Sure, why not? Cyrus nodded. I think Professor Snape is right about one thing. At least he looks like a very dangerous, brainless troll. It turns out, that's the kind of students that are getting a lot of care in the Slytherin house these days. It's a shame. These words immediately offended a lot of Slytherins. Malfoy, who was originally going to deal with Harry, wanted to cast a spell on Cyrus now. But the most annoyed person is of course Marcus Flint himself. Just wait and see. He coldly walked to the side and positioned himself at an appropriate distance. The rest of the students dispersed. Even the little wizards who had already chosen their opponents did not start their own duel at this moment. Instead, they watched the competition with a huge disparity in strength. The Slytherins even crossed their arms to watch the joke. Snape also looked at Cyrus expectantly. He wanted to see the true form of Ginny Weasley. Last year Dumbledore asked him to pay attention to Quirrell, but Quirrell became Voldemort's puppet. It's not yet certain who the Ginny Weasley in front of him is. How could a first-year wizard resist his Legilimency? You shouldn't have agreed. Hermione pulled Cyrus' sleeve, and Ron and Harry were unwilling to leave. They each held their own wands, watching Marcus Flint warily to prevent him from sneaking up on Ginny. How about we go? There's no requirement to join the club. Hermione suggested. It's okay, what's there to be afraid of? Cyrus said nonchalantly. We're with you. Ron firmly held the broken wand with magic tape on it and took a deep breath. Hey? Don't cause trouble with your broken wand. Cyrus pushed Ron away and turned to Harry. Hey Harry, you wanna see the spell which Lockhart taught you? What? Harry was confused for a moment. When had this loser Lockhart ever taught him the secret? Watch me remove his bones. After saying that, Cyrus pushed Harry away, took out his wand, and stood in front of Flint. The golden trio wanted to follow, but Snape stopped them all with a flick of his sleeves. I think, your opponents are all on the other side. Several people turned to look, and Malfoy showed a ferocious smile. I have learned some special moves. Okay, Lockhart's tangled features were almost twisted together. Hermione looked at him expectantly, hoping that he could stop this farce, but how could he dare to resist Snape now? Face your partner. Lockhart returned to the stage, shouting, take a bow. Cyrus immediately stretched his right hand to the side and bent down gracefully. But Flint seemed to have no intention of bowing. This didn't make Cyrus happy. You should bow. I won't bow to a little kid like her. Marcus said contemptuously. The Slytherins laughed loudly, obviously very proud of what Marcus did, and they probably thought it was an insult to Gryffindor. You disappoint me, how can Slytherin be so ungraceful? Take a bow, etiquette is required. Cyrus said, raising the arm, holding the wand above his head, his wrist pointing down. A light emerged from the tip of his wand. Marcus, who was still laughing, suddenly felt his spine bend, as if someone was holding his shoulders hard. Those who were laughing immediately closed their mouths and looked at Cyrus with heart palpitations. Even Harry and the others felt a little frightened. They had probably never seen such a scary Ginny Weasley before. Enough. Cyrus almost bent Marcus's waist to 90 degrees. If Snape hadn't cast a spell to interrupt him, Marcus' face would have been pressed to the ground. Lockhart was afraid that something might happen again, so he quickly shouted before the angry Marcus could get even more angry. Raise your wand and get ready. When I count to 3, you'll cast a spell to disarm the opponent, just disarm, we don't want anything to happen. 1, 2, 3. But Marcus took action at the count of 2. He cast a fierce curse, but Cyrus dismissed it without even looking. He didn't give Marcus any more time to react and cast a spell without mercy. Levi Corpus. Marcus suddenly felt his ankle being pulled by a force, and then his body immediately turned over, and his whole body was hung on the gorgeous black velvet ceiling. Everyone in the auditorium was stunned, and Snape was awakened to some not-so-good memories. Now, look. The golden bell falls to the ground. Libera Corpus. He pointed his wand, and Marcus immediately fell down with a snap. Ginny Weasley, how did you know this spell? Chapter 35, Beating. Snape's eyes were gloomy and annoyed. Looking at Marcus when he was being hung upside down, he almost seemed to see himself. After Marcus' release, he strode up to Cyrus, his thin body wrapped in a black wizard robe, and looked down at Cyrus. Who taught you this magic, Ginny Weasley? The curse that Cyrus used just now was naturally the upside-down Jinx Levi Corpus invented by Snape. After this curse was accidentally leaked, it immediately became popular in Hogwarts, so much so that Snape was nearly killed by James Potter. Humiliated with the magic he himself had invented. But after so many years, not many people still remember this jinx. But it just so happened that Cyrus knew the spell. Snape originally suspected that Ginny Weasley was possessed by Voldemort like Quirrell, but Voldemort was not interested in such boring tricks. Bill taught me that, Cyrus said immediately. When in doubt, I blame Bill for it. Anyway, Snape can't tell which pyramid in Egypt he is in now, and Bill went to school about 10 years later than Snape and the others. At that time, this spell was still popular in the school. Why didn't Bill teach me such a useful spell? Ron said extremely unbalancedly, next time I will write a letter to scold him. William Arthur Weasley. Snape naturally had heard of this man who had won 12 OWL certificates. Since Cyrus said this, he had no way to tell whether it was true or false, so he had no choice but to give up. Marcus Flint looked at Snape. Professor, I... Shut up. Snape gave Flint a hard look at this embarrassing display. His face was extremely ugly. It was conceivable that Marcus Flint would become a shame to the entire Slytherin from today on. Upon seeing this, Harry immediately became happy. As long as Snape was frustrated, he would be happy enough. Snape obviously noticed this and vented his anger on Harry. It seems that some people see others winning the game and think they can be just as lucky. His eyes first turned to look at Harry sideways, and then his expressionless face turned around. Humph! Harry, damn it! Why don't you find your own opponent? Do you think you can succeed if others succeed by luck? Malfoy. Draco first glanced at Marcus Flint with disdain, then confidently took a step forward. I'm here to meet you. Of course, it was impossible for Harry not to fight. The other students also recovered from the previous battle and began to face their opponents. As a result, the scene immediately became chaotic. Everyone was casting jinxes, and the duel between Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw was relatively restrained, but Slytherin and Gryffindor could be said to be adding new hatred to old hatred, so how could they be merciful? Fred and George both found Slytherin's batter, and Wood also secretly acted. There are even people who want to take advantage of the chaos to attack Cyrus, so that this enemy who has embarrassed Slytherin will also suffer. Of course, Cyrus was not polite about this and hung them all from the roof. Stop! More than 10 minutes later, when Lockhart shouted in a sharp voice to ask the students to stop, the ceiling of the auditorium was already covered with a large row of figures. From a distance, it looked like it was covered with rows of green figures hanging like bacon. Snape was trembling all over, and he didn't know whether it was from cold or anger. In the end, he didn't say anything. He just cast a large-scale universal anti-curse, removing Malfoy who was under the pimple curse, and those who were under the dancing curse. Harry and the batch of dried snake strips on the roof were all put down. Oh Merlin, oh Merlin! Lockhart jumped up and down in the crowd, looking at the aftermath of the duel. You stand up, Macmillan, look out, Miss Fawcett, pinch hard, the blood will come soon. Stop it, but... He regrets it now, regrets it very much. Both eyes became sluggish as if they had lost hope. I'm wrong, I'm really wrong, I should never have agreed to Dumbledore from the beginning. If I had not agreed to Dumbledore, I would not have been a professor of defense against the dark arts. If I had not been a professor of defense against the dark arts, I would not have fallen into such a sad place. If I had not fallen into such a sad place, I would not have to face such a lot of troubles. After finally stopping the commotion, Lockhart stood in the center of the auditorium with a flustered expression. He glanced at Snape and saw the cold light in Snape's black eyes, and immediately looked away. I think I'd better teach you how to stop unfriendly magic. Please volunteer to come up as a couple, Longbottom and Finreally. What do you think? He said it was voluntary, but he took the initiative to select 2 classmates who were not outstanding. At least this way, even if he made trouble, he will also be capable of solving it. This is a bad idea, Professor Lockhart, said Snape, gliding across the stage like a large, vicious bat. Longbottom can wreak havoc even with the simplest of spells. That way, we will have to put Fengliola's remains in a matchbox and send it to the St. Mungos. Neville's round face immediately turned red, not because Snape said bad things about him, but because Snape had completely misremembered him and Seamus. At this time, Cyrus felt Snape's eyes sweep across his body first, and he immediately raised his eyebrows in return. He wanted to see if Snape dared him to go up and fight Malfoy. Snape's eyes scanned Cyrus and Harry, and it could be seen that he actually hoped that the person who was going to make a fool of himself at this moment was Harry. But when he thought of what Dumbledore had said to him not long ago, he still aimed his snake-like eyes at Cyrus. What about Ginny Weasley fights Marcus Flint again? What? Although Lockhart had already planned to refuse no matter who Snape proposed, he was still shocked when Snape said these 2 names. I don't think this is appropriate. I hope you remember that Miss Weasley had just defeated him in a duel. And now he looks angry, maybe he'll try to harm her. Lockhart said with a troubled face. Yes, quite outstanding. Snape said every word, but I think we can give the loser another chance, right? He looked at Lockhart, the murderous intent in his eyes was undisguised, making Lockhart feel terrified. Okay, great, then Miss Weasley and Mr. Flint. Lockhart dared not disobey Snape and quickly pulled Cyrus to his side. Okay, Ginny, maybe he was not expecting you to suddenly use that. Jinx. But now. This is what you do when Flint points his wand at you. Lockhart raised his wand and waved it left and right, trying to conjure complicated tricks, but accidentally dropped it on the ground. If you can't give any good advice, please get out of the way, sir. Cyrus was tired of him and pushed him away with his hands. Will Ginny win again? Ron was very worried. Of course. Didn't you see how Ginny showed off her skills just now? And the professor just taught him a few tricks. Hermione said with confidence while arranging her messy hair. She still hasn't seen Lockhart's true face. If you mean dropping the wand on the ground, that's true, Ron said, unhappy. And he could see that Snape was the real one. Maybe he would teach Flint a powerful spell? It's okay, Ron, we have to trust Ginny. Harry patted Ron's shoulder hard, and he still had an unreal feeling. For the first time, Snape was targeting someone else in front of him. Ron's guess was right. When Marcus Flint walked up to Snape, the gloomy big bat immediately stretched out its claws, grabbed him, and said semi-threateningly. I'm giving you another chance, Flint, I don't want to hear any more excuses. Snape said coldly. But on the other hand, if Ginny Weasley was as he suspected at this moment, Flint would never win. Yes, sir. I'll teach you a spell, Snape whispered in his ear. Marcus Flint strutted onto the duel platform. He looked at the petite Ginny standing not far away. On one side was a little afraid after several defeats, and on the other side was the contempt for a first-year student. But no matter what, he was really nervous at the moment. Slytherin has made enough mockery of him. If he loses again, he will either transfer to another school or die. Chapter 36, Huge Guy with a Tiny PP. Marcus Flint stood on a high stage at the same time as Cyrus. The stage looked a bit like it was built with dining tables. Flint looked at his opponent warily while blushing with shame. The other party seemed so relaxed and at ease, not taking him seriously at all. He felt humiliated and embarrassed, but in fact, except for the Gryffindor students who were deliberately heckled, none of the other students felt that there was anything inappropriate about it. After all, a few minutes ago, the first-year student named Ginny Weasley turned a dozen Slytherin students into dried snakes and hung them from the ceiling of the auditorium. I'm going to teach you a lesson this time, Flint said in a serious tone. He really had no confidence, and he was sweating just looking at Cyrus's fingertips twirling the wand. I hope you can perform better after learning from Professor Snape, otherwise Slytherin's level will really disappoint me. Cyrus said nonchalantly. For a guy like Flint who has more brawn than brains, Tom Riddle could teach him a lesson at the level of a first-year curse. To be honest, it might be more dangerous for him to rush over with his fists while holding a wand. Come on, I'll give you a move. Cyrus said generously, you can cast the spell first, or you can do a sneak attack. His arrogant attitude made Flint grit his teeth, but the Slytherin gorilla did not refuse. He just tightened his grip on the wand and breathed hard. Don't be nervous, Marcus, you were just careless before. He kept telling himself in his mind. She's just a first-year wizard, you can't lose. Lockhart started again, but this time Flint didn't take the lead. He kept looking at Cyrus vigilantly, ready to defend at any time, fearing that the same spell he cast before would be deflected by Cyrus. What's wrong, you don't want to do anything? Cyrus felt a little ridiculous when he saw Flint's timid appearance. He originally looked like a gorilla, but now he looks more like a turtle with a shrunken head. He took a step forward, and Flint immediately couldn't help but take a step back. This embarrassing look made the Slytherin wizards couldn't help but curse. What are you doing, Flint? A shame. Teach her a lesson. Quit Slytherin, you loser. Malfoy scolded the loudest. It was as if they were not the ones who were afraid of Ginny, as if they were the brave ones, and Marcus was the only cowardly loser. Marcus glared at him fiercely, and Malfoy immediately shrank his head and did not dare to speak. Now, the gorilla was finally forced to do something about it. He raised his wand. Cyrus was glad he remembered that he was a wizard, and fired a stunner. Cyrus knew it was a coma spell because Marcus said it loudly. Flint hasn't mastered the secret of silent spells yet, that is, he can cast those small evil spells that are not on the table more smoothly. Cyrus didn't bother to put up a defense. He turned his head slightly to dodge the over-the-top attack. A duel is not as simple as standing around and firing magic spells. The battle with Marcus even made Cyrus find it very boring. He gave the opponent a few moves, or in other words, his intention to release the spell with Marcus was so obvious every time that Cyrus easily dodged it. This was too easy for him, but the audience in the auditorium were terrified. From their perspective, Ginny Weasley didn't fight back for some reason, but could only avoid Marcus' attacks. Every time Marcus's curse rubbed Ginny's little body flying over, hitting the wall hard. "Ginny, fight back!" Ron yelled in fright. "Knock her down, Flint." The wizards of Slytherin were not to be outdone. Everyone in every house is very nervous. People in 3 houses are worried about Ginny, but the Slytherin students are looking forward to it, hoping that Flint can avenge his shame. Even Marcus Flint himself thought he had the upper hand. He shot out more and more curses and aggressively attacked while approaching, trying to put more pressure on Cyrus. Ginny Weasley? Just a small kid. He thought, feeling that he had a chance to win. Only Snape could see that Cyrus was at ease, and even at ease was a euphemism. She is not even taking him seriously, Snape thought. His eyes were very gloomy. A first-year freshman who has only been in school for half a semester can defeat a senior wizard. This is already a fantasy outcome. Not to mention that the difference in strength between the two people now is almost as big as clouds and mud. No need to think too much, there is definitely something wrong with Ginny Weasley. "You bore me terribly, Mr. Flint." On the stage, Cyrus was tired of this kind of childish playhouse battle. He flicked his wrist and his wand made a whooshing sound in the air. Flint's powerful spell was actually shattered by Cyrus in front of him. In Cyrus's eyes, the seemingly powerful spell was just a useless firework. Marcus paused, as if a bucket of cold water had been poured on him. The indomitable momentum just now was extinguished. Now holding the wand, he was stared at by Cyrus's eyes, and he actually felt fearful. Cyrus slowly picked up the wand and shot a powerful spell. The light of the curse instantly illuminated the astonished faces of the circle of young wizards surrounding the stage. They subconsciously closed their eyes and couldn't help but take a step back. "Protego!" Marcus Flint shouted urgently. Boom! Then a muffled sound was heard, as if a firecracker had exploded. The stage seemed to shake a few times. "What's the matter?" Ron asked timidly. Harry never moved his eyes. Flint blocked the spell. Flint was swaying on the stage, as if he was drunk, and his hands were numb, but he still blocked the spell. Flint breathed a sigh of relief. No matter what, at least the curse could be blocked, right? But he didn't know that this was just the power that Cyrus used for dueling. What's more, a qualified Protego spell should not only block attacks, but also rebound the power of the spell. "How many times can you block it, Flint?" Cyrus asked teasingly. Marcus looked at the cute face of Ginny, but swallowed in fear, as if what he saw now was not a cute little girl, but a ferocious beast. He couldn't help but take a few steps back, but heard another, more terrifying sound coming from behind him. "Use the spell I taught you, Flint," Snape roared in his characteristic way of speaking. Flint was shocked and took another step in the direction of Cyrus. Instead of becoming braver, it felt like there were thorns growing on his back, forcing him to move forward. "Serpent Sortia!" The front end of his wand exploded, and a black snake sprang out of the wand, landed heavily on the ground, raised its body, opened its fangs, and started roaring. The little wizards surrounding the stage immediately jumped away in fear, their faces turning pale. Marcus watched the spell taught by Snape take effect and immediately looked at Cyrus with pride. Yet he could see no fear on Cyrus's face. In fact, Cyrus was looking at the little black snake he summoned. Compared with the basilisk, it is as small as a black snake, but it also grins. It doesn't look scary at all, but rather cute. "What's wrong, Flint? Don't tell me you plan to scare me with this thing." Cyrus chuckled. He controlled Parseltongue very well and would not say it without knowing it like Harry did. "Don't worry, big guy, size doesn't matter every time, the little ones are cute too." Flint felt that he had been humiliated. Although he had been humiliated enough during this period, he still couldn't swallow this breath. Seeing Ginny's annoying look, he simply became heartbroken and cast another spell at the snake. This time it's a swelling spell. The black snake seemed to be inflated, and it immediately swelled. Its head almost reached the ceiling, and with a powerful sweep of its tail, Flint himself was knocked away first. The auditorium suddenly fell into chaos. The little wizards screamed and ran around like a pod of rats, only to bump into each other. Lockhart's legs gave way and he fell to the ground. Chapter 37, Parseltongue. The auditorium was filled with the screams of the little wizards. Many students were frightened and fainted, and even Snape turned pale. Of course, Snape wasn't afraid of a snake that was looking like a big dragon. Being able to be affected by the expansion curse proves that the snake itself is not a magical animal and does not have much magic resistance. It only needs a magic spell to kill it. But now that there is such a huge commotion, what should the little wizards do if they are injured? He couldn't help but resent Flint. This useless idiot, who taught him to use the expansion spell on summoned objects. But at this moment, Flint had been knocked unconscious by the big snake he had conjured. Calm down. Snape had to add a spell to his voice so that it could reach the ears of every young wizard. This was probably the only time in his life that he spoke so loudly that Harry felt like his ears were filled with Snape's voice, which made him sick for a while. Ginny, run! Ron's face was full of panic. He, Percy, and the twins wanted to rush forward and pull Cyrus back, but the little wizards were all running away in every direction. Almost 1,000 people were crowded together like the offshore tide that took them farther away. Hermione was completely panicked. She didn't know what to do, and her mind went blank until Harry called for her. "Send me there, Hermione." Harry's voice rang in her ears and she glanced at him. "What? Send me to Ginny?" Harry shouted anxiously. "Send you there? But, how? Use the levitation charm on my clothes." Harry quickly came up with an idea. "Okay, I get it." If Hermione had been calmer, she would have thought that instead of sending Harry there, it would be better to bring Ginny over directly. But now she couldn't think clearly and could only passively follow the instructions. Fortunately, she hasn't forgotten the spell yet. Wingardium Leviosa. As Hermione raised her wand, Harry immediately felt as if his clothes were caught on something and flew up with him. His field of vision suddenly became higher. He loved to see Hermione's panicked face and saw Ron, who was originally with them but was squeezed away. He tried desperately to get closer to Ginny but was tripped by Draco. George and Fred were mixed with Lee Jordan and Wood. Percy's physical strength was not very good. Harry only saw his face struggling and being drowned by the crowd. Harry quickly felt himself spinning, and then he was slammed onto the stage, between Ginny and the giant black snake. "Harry Potter!" Cyrus and Snape made surprised sounds at the same time. "Why are you here, Harry?" Cyrus asked calmly. Harry wanted to speak, but his hand was sprained when he fell to the ground, and the pain made him gasp. "Don't move. Harry Weasley, let me do it." Snape took a step forward, his heart hanging, fearing that Harry and Cyrus' little move might offend the big snake. He didn't dare to directly cast a spell to kill it. Even if the poisonous snake was dead, it was still dangerous. Even if it only had one head, it could bite through a person's body with its fangs. But Harry felt that he could listen to the big snake's words. He can talk to snakes. He took a step forward without thinking much, his eyes looking directly at the black snake. Cyrus looked at Harry's little back and could see that Harry himself was actually very scared. But Ginny Weasley was his best friend's sister, so he could risk his life to save her. Of course, Cyrus didn't need his help. "Harry, you don't need." But Harry had already opened his mouth and made a hoarse, terrifying sound. The Great Hall suddenly fell silent, which was much more effective than the amplifying spell Snape had used. The huge black snake suddenly became quiet, leaned over, and put its head on Harry's chest, looking so docile. "It's okay, Ginny." Harry breathed a sigh of relief, reached out and touched the black snake's head, and then turned his head. Only then did he realize that something was wrong. 1,000 people in the entire auditorium stared at him in horror. "What's wrong?" Harry looked confused. But before anyone could respond to him, Cyrus grabbed his wrist and jumped off the stage with him. "What's wrong? Stop talking and leave." Ron rushed over quickly and grabbed Harry's other hand, and Hermione quickly followed. Wherever they passed, everyone quickly made way. They looked away from Harry almost as if they were seeing the snake itself. They were silent all the way until they rushed from the first floor to the tower and arrived at the empty Gryffindor common room. Ron then asked, "You're a Parseltongue. Why didn't you tell us?" "What am I?" Harry didn't understand, but he obviously realized something was wrong. Parseltongue. Cyrus pretended as if it was the first time he knew such a surprising thing. You can talk to snakes. I know, said Harry, I mean, this is the second time I've done it. One time at the zoo, I accidentally let a python out, and the python said something to my cousin and pounced on. Ugh, it's a long story. At that time, the python told me that it had never been to Brazil, so I unknowingly let it out. I didn't mean to. At that time, I didn't know that I was a wizard. You met a big python and the big python tells you that it has never been to Brazil? Ron asked in a weak voice. What's the matter? Said Harry, I bet a lot of people here can do that. You're wrong, Harry, Cyrus shook his head. There are very few people who understand the language of snakes. Very few, and very poorly. Why are you guys making it a big scene? Harry asked, if I hadn't told the snake to quiet down, it might have attacked you. Oh, that's what you said to him. What do you mean? You were there, you heard me. We couldn't understand. I heard you speaking in Parseltongue, the language of snakes. It could have been anything you said. It sounded like you were egging on the snake. It was creepy. You know. Cyrus said. He certainly has this ability, but unlike Harry, he has more control over Parseltongue. Of course, I know you would never harm anyone, but the students, they don't think so. Ron said. Harry stared at him dumbfounded. I spoke another language? But, I didn't realize, how could I speak another language and not know it? Ron shook his head. Both he and Hermione looked heavy-hearted as if someone had died. Harry didn't understand what could be so terrible. But even if this is the case, so what? You believe me, this is enough. You know that I intend to save you, right? He said to Cyrus, in this case, why does it matter if I can talk to snakes, wasn't that a good thing? It's very important, Hermione finally lowered her voice, because Salazar Slytherin is famous for being able to talk to snakes. Therefore, the symbol of the Slytherin school is a snake. Harry's mouth dropped open. That's right, Cyrus said. Now, everyone in the school will think that you are a descendant of Slytherin, maybe his great-great-great-grandson or something, and being a descendant of Slytherin they will think that you are the one who opened the Chamber of Secrets. But I'm not, Harry said. He had a panicked expression. You'll find this hard to prove, said Hermione. He lived about 1,000 years ago, from all we know, it's likely that you are his descendant. Not to mention Cyrus looked into Harry's eyes and pursed his lips, not to mention, rumors never require your consent. Harry was immediately struck by a silent force. Chapter 38, Shower Together? The four of them were silent for a while. Harry was upset. Cyrus slowly walked to the window. At this time, it started to snow outside the window. Cyrus was also thinking about something, and for a while, there was only the sound of firewood burning in the lounge. It wasn't long before Harry and Ron went back upstairs to rest. Ron was probably worried that the duel club members would come back after a while. To be honest, Harry didn't know what to do if something like this happened. Escape seemed to be the easiest option. Cyrus and Hermione were the only ones left in the common room. The little witch picked up the book and read for a while, feeling a little sleepy. Shall we go and rest too? Hermione said to Cyrus, but how about taking a bath first? It's a bit cold. Cyrus? Okay. There are many bathrooms in Hogwarts where you can take a bath. In fact, there are bathhouses in the dormitories. It's just that, unlike a luxurious place like the prefect's bathroom, the dormitory's bathhouse is just a public bathhouse separated for men and women. Cyrus was using Ginny's body, so naturally, he could only enter the women's bathhouse. It wasn't cold at all in the bathhouse. After the shower was turned on, warm water flowed down. Of course, Hogwarts does not have solar energy or water heaters, but water can be heated using magic. The bathroom was filled with mist. Cyrus sat on a small table, and Hermione carefully washed her fluffy hair. Ginny, could you rub my back? I can't reach it. Of course, Cyrus said calmly. He is not a Lolita fan, and he has no interest in Hermione, a little girl, for the time being. Early the next morning, Cyrus walked down with Ginny's body, which seemed to be much more energetic, and found Harry sitting next to the burning fireplace without saying a word. Ron and Hermione are playing wizard chess. What's wrong with you? Didn't you go to class? There is only herbal medicine class today, and it has been cancelled. Ron turned around, it's snowing, and Professor Sprout needs to put socks and a scarf on Mandrake. Then Hermione whispered in Cyrus's ear, it's quite difficult for Harry. You know what happened yesterday, everyone is now avoiding him. I think I can help explain it to them. Cyrus thought for a while and said. But Harry had already stood up from the sofa, no, thank you. I don't care what they think of me, as long as you guys believe in me, that's enough. Where are you going? Ron saw Cyrus and Harry walking out together. He remembered that Ginny's class today seemed to be in the afternoon. To eat breakfast. I'm going to get some air. Cyrus and Harry left the lounge together. Sure enough, there was a snowstorm outside the castle. Thick, grey snowflakes were dancing in the sky, sealing every window. The castle was much darker than usual during the day. Don't worry too much, Harry. I believe they will understand soon that you would not do such a thing. Everyone knows that you are an upright person. Cyrus comforted. Thank you, Ginny. Harry smiled reluctantly. He didn't have much hope for this. Just like Ginny said yesterday, those people don't care what the truth is. They just need a rumor. With so many things going on, students just need an outlet for their emotions. It doesn't matter if it's him or not, and it's better to be him. He was the famous Harry Potter, after all. It is always extremely satisfying to associate a famous person with those bad rumors. It's as if just discussing some controversies makes some students look more awake than others. The two people did not go together, but soon separated. Cyrus did not go to the hall to eat, but turned around and went to the bathroom. The attack must continue. The attack is not for the attack itself, but only by creating panic, will the events in Hogwarts receive attention, and only in this way can Cyrus find a way to temporarily drive Dumbledore out of school. Otherwise, even if he is resurrected, he will not be Dumbledore's opponent. Soon, he came out of the bathroom alone. At this moment, the basilisk was already walking through the pipe. Cyrus walked the corridors, looking for his next target. It was snowing heavily outside, thick, grey snowflakes were floating in the air, and the corridor was filled with wind. He quickly found a target in Justin Finch-Fletchley. A second-year Hufflepuff wizard from the Muggle world. He looked like he was going to the kitchen to get some extra stoves, along with a friend of his. Cyrus didn't know him, but that didn't matter. He cast a disillusionment charm on himself and followed them. Ernie, do you think Harry Potter is really the heir of Slytherin? Justin asked his companion as he walked. To be honest, I only knew about the Parseltongue you were talking about yesterday. I couldn't believe that there was such a thing. I think him being the heir is almost true. Since that's the exclusive ability of dark wizards. Ernie said confidently, and you saw it, he was so scary when he talked to that snake yesterday. Maybe you're right. Justin nodded seriously. Cyrus had already walked to their side. He took out his wand and waved it near Justin's temple. Justin's eyes immediately became wandering, as if his soul had been taken away by Cyrus. He stopped. What's wrong? Ernie asked strangely. Nothing, I remembered that I have something to do and I have to go back first. Can you get me a cup of hot pumpkin juice? Justin said numbly under Cyrus' control. Ernie, being a young kid, had no doubts about something being wrong. Then you have to be careful on the road. I remember you told Harry that you were born as a Muggle, right? Yeah, I will be careful. Cyrus controls Justin and leaves. Fortunately, due to the weather, there were very few people in the corridor today. It was too cold and it was still snowing. If the snow stopped, there would be many people hanging out. He took Justin to search for traces of ghosts in the castle and soon met the nearly headless Nick, who was wandering in a dark corridor. Then, he lifted the imperious curse from Justin. The confused wizard hadn't figured out what was going on and looked around blankly. Why am I here? Justin murmured. Why are you here? You look really confused. Didn't you come here by yourself? Nick tilted his head almost fell off, and said with confusion. Are you the Gryffindor ghost? What are you doing here? Nothing, just solving problems. Nick said sadly, also, I found that the window here was open. I wanted to close it for you students, but then I remembered that I was dead and was a ghost. As he was talking, he suddenly noticed an expression of extreme fear on Justin's face, and then he fell straight down as if he was frightened out of his body. What? Even though I am a ghost, am I so scary? Nick looked ridiculous. I remember that I had made an appearance in your year when you little wizards first entered school. Haven't you present? He turned his head with a strange expression. Ah! Now he knew why Justin was so scared. Chapter 39, Marauder's Map. Justin was petrified. Also petrified was Nick, who was almost headless. A terrifying attacker, even the dead Nick was not an exception. What's worse is that Harry once again, coincidentally, appeared at the scene of the crime. And he was caught red-handed. Now, he was taken to Dumbledore's office by Professor McGonagall. Cyrus bit into a piece of bread and squeezed into the crowd, pretending to be completely unaware of the commotion. You came just in time, Ginny. Ron saw Ginny as if he had seen a savior. From the looks in his and Hermione's eyes, it was easy to see that they were expecting Cyrus to give some useful information. Ginny, you and Harry went out together. Did you find anything? Ron asked eagerly. No, what happened? I went directly to the restaurant. Hearing this, Ron immediately showed a disappointed expression. Hermione then explained what Cyrus already knew best. If we didn't know Harry's personality from the start, maybe even we would think he was the murderer. George, Harry Potter really is the heir of Slytherin. Fred shook his head with a smile and looked at his brother. George was just as ridiculous as he was, but they thought it was funny. The most evil wizard in the world, Harry Potter, is a Gryffindor, and is still the heir of Slytherin. Now we have defeated all the Slytherins. George said cheerfully. What a pity, there are always so many people and the timing is also worse, otherwise we can find out who the attacker is, Fred said to George in a low tone which no one heard, except Cyrus. George and Fred's words immediately made Cyrus think twice. The Marauder's Map. This God's Perspective map, which can be called an artifact, is perfect for finding criminals. However, in order to prevent the map from being revealed, the twins naturally could not take out the map and look at it all the time. But what if? What if the next time I plan to attack someone, they happen to take out a map? Cyrus can't guarantee that the trajectory of everything now will be exactly the same as in the original work. And now that Dumbledore was doubting himself, the map could always come in handy if he planned to escape from Hogwarts. Even just confirming Dumbledore's location would add a lot of insurance to him. So, he immediately walked towards the twins and pulled them aside. What, Ginny? I always feel like she has bad intentions. I am your sister, what bad thoughts can I have? Cyrus said with an innocent face, let me ask you, how did I behave last night? Did I deal with Slytherin hard? Wasn't that fun? That's true. You satisfy your brothers. Fred and George immediately sang in harmony, recalling Slytherin's performance in the duel club yesterday, and said happily, I think they will not be able to hold their heads up for at least this year. A whole year? I dare say they will suffer as long as Ginny is at Hogwarts. Since I performed so well, can you do me a favor? Cyrus showed them a toothy smile, and now he was finally about to reveal his dagger. It's just that the twins were not fooled at all. What does your taking care of Slytherin have to do with us? Fred knew without even thinking that his sister was going to make some embarrassing demands. In the final analysis, that gorilla, Marcus Flint wanted to deal with you to avenge himself and his face because of your previous curse. That's right. Even if you think a little further back, you had done it for Ron. So you should ask Ron for help. George said immediately. But you asked me to be cruel to the Slytherin students before the duel club started. And Cyrus secretly glanced back at Ron, do you really think Ron can help? The two brothers also subconsciously looked at the stupid Ron, and for a moment they felt that Cyrus' words could not be refuted. Okay, we are convinced by you. Especially the second half of the sentence. The two asked in unison, okay, let's see what help our dear sister wants. Do you still remember when you saved me on the first day of school? You mean the secret passage? Fred pretended to be stupid. No. Ginny raised her voice, but she was worried that others would hear the conversation, so she lowered her voice again. I mean your method of not seeing others but knowing where they are. Maybe you can use it to find the real person. The murderer. It seems that our sister is eyeing the secret of our success, George. I'm not surprised at all, but no. George said immediately. In fact, what Cyrus said coincided with their original idea, and they had actually thought of trying it. It's impossible to succeed, Ginny. No one knows when the successor will launch an attack. You can't stare at the map forever. You have to give it a try. Cyrus said. Now that so many victims have appeared, and Harry has been wrongfully accused, we can't let the murderer continue to be rampant. Give it to me. Or I will tell Dumbledore about you guys having a secret that can find the murderer. Hearing this, Fred and George looked very hurt. Did you hear that? Our good sister is threatening us. I heard Fred, there's nothing wrong with my ears. George immediately responded with a look of sorrow on his face. Get it out quickly if you don't want Dumbledore or the others to know. No. We'd rather let Dumbledore know. Cyrus didn't expect that even for this reason, they were still unwilling to take out the map. This made him very confused. Why? When I find the murderer, I will return the map to you. No. This is too dangerous, Ginny. We don't want to hear about you being petrified. Dumbledore said that this kind of petrification spell must be cast by someone who is proficient in dark magic, and you are only in the first year. Although the twins may seem a bit heartless, in fact, they still care about their little sister very much. I'm better than both of you. Cyrus said with a straight face, and you think I will be safe after defeating and humiliating those Slytherin students? You can make fun, but we all know Harry is innocent. What if the heir really comes from Slytherin? Then he must hate me very much. But you're a pure blood. Fred was shaken. I am. But there is no evidence that that person will not attack pure bloods, right? The writing on the wall says those who are enemies of the successor, be cautious, not mudbloods, be cautious. Cyrus said the two of them were unable to refute. If I can know the location of others in advance, maybe I can know who is going to attack me, right? It makes sense. Okay, the two men hesitated for a while, but finally thought that what Cyrus said was right. It is easy to dodge an open spear but hard to guard against a hidden arrow. Give it to her. Anyway, we are almost done with it. George also nodded. They then led Cyrus outside the common room. The snowstorm continued and it was so cold outside that almost no one was still outside. But just in case, the two of them found an empty classroom and locked the door. Then Fred took out a square piece of paper from his robe. To be honest, I'm quite reluctant to part with it. That's right, I think back then, we were only in the first grade, young, carefree and innocent, George said. Cyrus smiled immediately. More innocent than now. We had a bit of trouble with Filch back then, Fred said. So he pulled us into his office and started threatening us with his usual threats, George completed. And we couldn't help but take aim at one of his filing cabinet drawers, which was marked confiscated items, highly dangerous. Hey, what would you do if it were you? Fred said, looking at smiling Ginny. George threw another dung bomb to distract him. I immediately opened the drawer and caught this. It's not as bad as it sounds, you know, said George. We reckon Filch never figured out how to use it. But he probably guessed what it was, or he wouldn't have confiscated it. Do you know how to use it? Ginny asked. Oh, I know. Fred said with a proud smile, this little baby has taught us more than all the teachers in the school. He pulled out his wand, tapped the parchment, and said, I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. In an instant, thin lines of ink spread like a spider web from where the tip of George's wand touched, connecting, crisscrossing, and extending to every corner of the parchment. Then words appeared on the top, green. Large floral letters. Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. Gentlemen who are here to help magical mischief makers. Introducing Marauder's Map. The map showed all the details of Hogwarts castle and grounds, but what was most unusual was that there were many small black dots moving across the map, each with a name in tiny font. In addition to marking everyone's location, it also marked many secret passages. The one we went to last time was the one leading to Hogsmeade. But we were worried about you running out alone, so we lied to you about the secret passages inside, saying it was blocked. But now, we have to admit that you are really capable. Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. George patted the title of the map and sighed, thanks to them. What a noble man, working tirelessly to help a new generation of disciplinary students, Fred said solemnly. Yes, George agreed briskly, don't forget to dispel it after use. Otherwise everyone can see it, Fred warned. Just tap it again and say, mischief managed, and it becomes a blank sheet of paper again. Okay, now, little Ginny, said Fred, imitating Percy in a weird voice, just take care of yourself. After Cyrus took the parchment, he immediately put on the same solemn expression, thank you, I will return it to you when I'm done using it. Chapter 40, Transformation. After getting the Marauder's Map, Cyrus couldn't help but study it. It was something developed by a few students, but the effect was unexpectedly powerful. Cyrus couldn't help but lament that the students during the war years were just different. Let's look at what the students at Hogwarts are busy doing right now. As a role model, the prefect is actually in love. And he's still banging in the women's restroom. It's you, Percy. Cyrus stood at the door of the bathroom on the 3rd floor. He originally just wanted to see how the Polyjuice Potion was being refined, but now he narrowed his eyes when he saw a man and a woman appearing in the women's bathroom. Ginny. Percy blushed, and his hands bounced off Penelope's arms as if they were electrocuted. Why are you here? Me? Using the restroom, you. Cyrus took a step back, turned to look at the sign outside the restroom, and after confirming again that this was the women's restroom, he looked nonchalantly at the two lovers who had no future. P.S. Professional cock blocker. Doing such things in the women's bathroom? I really don't understand you. It's not like Hogwarts doesn't allow love, so why are you doing this secretly? As she said that, she looked at Penelope again. I am Penelope Clearwater. I'm from Ravenclaw. Hello, Ginny. Penelope was no better than Percy, her face was as red as a dyed one, and when she spoke her lips were trembling. Hello, Miss Penelope Clearwater. Cyrus also greeted him. He just wanted to keep the two lovers away from the Moaning Myrtle's bathroom on this floor to avoid accidents at some critical moment. Listen to me, Ginny. Percy seemed to have recovered from his nervousness and spoke immediately. Can you please keep it secret? Cyrus asked. The couple nodded immediately. You know, if George and Fred found out. Percy felt horrified just thinking about that scene. They will definitely write a letter to their mother, and then hang countless banners in every corner of the school, saying, "Congratulations to Percy, the model student, for finding a girlfriend." Or worse. Yes, I will shut my mouth, but I suggest you change this place. Cyrus said, it's really a bad idea to hide in the women's bathroom, and especially this one. Don't you know that Ron often comes here? If he knew, then almost the whole school would. We all know it. Hearing this, Percy's expression turned a little darker. Thank you, Ginny. Let's go, first. The two lovebirds ran away quickly as if they were fleeing. Cyrus also heard Percy complaining to Penelope. See? Like I said, it's not safe to choose that place. We were discovered the first time we came there. Then find one yourself. Penelope's voice sounded a little annoyed. I just came over and saw Percy and the Ravenclaw prefect walking from here. Were you not discovered? Ron rushed into the toilet and immediately looked at Cyrus nervously. I was discovered, but what's so weird about me being in the women's room? Cyrus asked. As long as the Polyjuice Potion is fine. Hermione pushed open the last compartment of the toilet, and the potion in the cauldron was almost ready. Now we just need to add a little bit of Slytherin student's hair. It's best to use Goyle and Crabbe. She turned to look at Harry and Ron. It's true, but what about you? Harry asked. I already have mine. Hermione said happily, taking out a small bottle from her pocket and showing them a piece of hair inside. Remember when Millicent wrestled with me in the dueling club? She left this on my dress while she was choking me. She's gone home for Christmas. All I have to say to the Slytherins is that I've decided to come back. I have some too. Cyrus also took out a few hairs. Okay. Ron and Harry had no choice but to get Goyle and Crabbe's hair. By the way, Ginny, I'll go to the laundry room and steal some clothes. You keep stirring the potion. Hermione said and rushed out. Cyrus had no choice but to continue stirring the crucible. Now black smoke began to rise from the crucible, and the whole compartment was filled with smoke. You can't even see anything inside the toilet cubicle. Fortunately it wasn't smoking when Percy came over, otherwise this would have been discovered. After a while, Hermione returned with several cups and 4 sets of clothes, followed closely by Harry and Ron. Hermione poured the bubbling potion of the cauldron into a cup, and then added Millicent's hair. The potion made a loud noise, like a pot of boiling water, and foamed vigorously. After a second, it turned into an ugly yellow color. Oh, the essence of Millicent, said Ron, looking at it with distaste. I suppose it tastes bad. Okay, add yours, Hermione said. Harry put Goyle's hair into the middle cup, and Ron put Crabbe's hair into the last cup. Both glasses sizzled and bubbled. Goyle's turned the color of a tank, Crabbe's a dark brown. Cyrus also put the small handful of white hair in his hand into the potion. In an instant, the potion turned into a color between black and white, but not grey. It kinda looks twisted like. Cyrus was about to give up drinking the compound potion for a moment. He should have taken a risk and used body transformation. Wait a minute, said Harry, we'd better not all drink here. Once we become Crabbe and Goyle, there won't be space in here. Millicent is not a dainty person either. That makes sense. Ron said, opening the door, let's each occupy a private room. Cyrus chose a cubicle that was a little off. He originally wanted to simply pour the potion, but in order to achieve a perfect deformation using the human body transfiguration technique, one must have a considerable understanding of the details of the object being transformed. The other person's height and weight, body proportions, details of facial features. But he was not so impressed by Malfoy. Yes, Cyrus planned to become Malfoy. This was something he had decided before. On the Thursday when he stole the potion, he took a handful of Malfoy's hair. So, he raised his head and drank the compound potion. Surprisingly, it was not unpleasant to drink, but it had a very awkward taste, like a mixture of sweet and bitter, a little sour and a little spicy at the same time, but no matter what, he had already drunk the potion. The compound potion immediately begins to take effect. He felt like something alive was burrowing under Jenny's skin, and it was constantly surging. It was like a snake was swimming under the skin, tearing open the connection between the skin and flesh, and eating her flesh. But the pain is fleeting. The next moment, Cyrus saw platinum bangs on his head through the eyes that looked like Draco's.
Thanks for listening.